Hello everyone, and welcome to Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting series on what if Naruto was banished for inflicting and become Emperor of the West. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. The continent of the elemental nations is much bigger than people realize, as it was once part of a much larger land mass than the maps that are shown today. If one was to look at the map, they would see that the map doesn't show what is in the west, beyond Iwa and Suna, beyond the country of earth and wind. For you see, all of the elemental countries are located at the eastern side of the country as a whole, and what lies beyond those two countries is a giant wall, stretching for miles, from the most northern part of the continent to the southern part, completely sealing the east from the west. It is this wall that holds back the violence from the west spilling over to the east. When comparing powers, the west were superior from the east in every way, whether it would be technology, fighting styles, or even powers. The comparison between was so huge that it was like having a huge demonic dragon reigning over his land versus a small frog in his small well. Nobody, from the cages of shinobi villages to the daimyos ruling over their domain, would risk crossing this wall. Even the legendary Uchiha Madara himself dared not to cross over the wall in fear he would draw attention to even one war-hardened factions there. Beyond this massive wall, a wall that was forged during the time of the Sage of the Six Paths by the sage himself, were warlords, samurais, shinobis, assassins, and even demons that all fought to protect their own individual territories from their rivals. It had been the reason why the sage made this wall in the first place, as he knew the east would easily be consumed by the powers of the west without the wall. Years later, the Uzumaki clan from Whirlpool were commissioned by many feudal lords of the east to use their mastery of the sealing arts to cover the walls with seals to prevent deterioration and strengthen it. Before he died, the Sage of the Six Paths proclaimed that if the conflicts of the west was brought over to the east, more than one half of the east would be wiped out before a proper counter-response could be mounted. Of course, legends and myths fade through the passage of time. The warnings were ignored as the East believed themselves to be powerful, perhaps invincible. Nobody dares to cross over, though. Why would they? There was no point in going over to a war-torn land to conquer if they believed nothing of value could be obtained. Through time, warnings were ignored as the arrogance and stupidity of the East grew. Until a single incident would become the catalyst that would completely shake the very foundations of the East. And that specific incident came on a day when Uchiha Sasuke decided to defect from Konoha to join Orochimaru, but failed to accomplish that goal thanks to the effort of one Uzumaki Naruto, and was brought back to Konoha. The two had fought each other in brutal battle, as Naruto was on a mission to bring Sasuke back to the leaf, while the Uchiha's own was to slay his pursuer for greater power. Naruto had suffered 2 Chidori to his chest but endured the lethality of the jutsu, and the pure torment that came along with the rest of his injuries from the battle to return Sasuke back to Konoha. On the last clash of Chidori versus Rasengan, Naruto used 2 taels worth of chakra to overwhelm Sasuke. The blonde shinobi hoped his actions would prove that he was not a monster, was not the Kyuubi, and most importantly, finally prove himself worthy of Konoha's recognition. The council, composed of 11 civilians, 11 clan heads, 2 advisors, and the Hokage, would finally acknowledge him. He was sadly mistaken. Flashback begins. Genin Ninja number 012607 Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade said in a dull voice, not trusting her voice, "It is my duty to inform you that a vote has taken place, and a majority decision of 17 to 8 has been made in the council to strip you of your rank and banish you from Konoha, effective immediately. The reason being is that you have inflicted grievous damage to the last Uchiha despite your mission. You have until next sunset to leave the Leaf Village, and should you ever return, you will be killed on sight." Another reason that Tsunade didn't say out loud was that everyone had felt Naruto use the Kyuubi's chakra and was afraid of the fox getting loose, even though the fourth sealing ability would never allow it. Naruto had been summoned to the council while still sporting many injuries from his battle. The council didn't even allow Naruto to recover from his wounds before being banished. Naruto looked crestfallen at this statement as he looked around at the council. The civilians and advisors all had smug looks on their faces, enjoying the fact that the demon brat would finally leave, the curse would be gone. Danzo had 2 votes, as he controlled the Shimura and was the current voice for the Uchiha until Sasuke was of age, and used them to banish Naruto. He had his own plans, of course, of forcibly recruiting the Jinchuriki into Root while he was no longer in the village's sight. The last clans to vote for the banishment was the Kuruma and Inazaka clan, who had thought Naruto was the Kyuubi, one through popular opinion and the other by instinct and smell. The rest of the clan heads looked at the voters in disdain. Tsunade looked like she was about to cry as she saw Naruto's heartbroken face, and resisted showing any emotion in front of the heartless bastards who ripped Naruto's dreams away from him. Naruto slowly took off his headband before laying it on the floor. He reached to take off his necklace, only to be halted by Tsunade. "Keep it, it's yours, and I hope it'll protect you," Tsunade said, tears already leaking out. Naruto left the council room, heading back home to pack up. Flashback ends. Before the council was dismissed, the 17 voters quickly also revoked the Sandame's law about Naruto being the container of the Kyuubi, allowing the young generation to learn the truth. The news spread fast amongst them, and reactions varied from one extreme to another. As Naruto walked back to his home to pack, he saw the rest of the Konoha 12, excluding himself and Sasuke. "That baka deserves to die for hitting Sasuke-kun," ranted Sakura. "Agreed. We should go find that demon and kill him," Ino shouted, agreeing with Sakura. "He was the fox all along, I should have known. I could smell that scent off him, he should have died," growled Kiba. "How unyoutful? Naruto has lied to us and was the fox," exclaimed Lee. Naruto was already crying and almost lost hope, contemplating suicide when a voice he thought he would never hear say this rang out. "Shut up, Lee," said Neji coldly. Lee looked shocked at this statement and was about to argue when he saw Tenten also staring coldly at him too. "He is like me, no worse off than me. He has a seal like mine, except worse. Even with this caged bird seal, I am acknowledged among the people as a shinobi and a prodigy. Naruto has a seal that holds the Kyuubi at bay, and yet many people in this village despises him. And yet, sinking into despair, he kept defying his fate as a scapegoat. He even forced me to see that fate was, indeed, a bitch and that I should not go along with it. Even I am familiar with seals, as I use it for my weapons. A scroll holding a kunai is not the kunai itself. Naruto is still Naruto, while the Kyuubi is inside, sealed away," added Tenten. "These idiots can't even tell the difference between a scroll and a kunai." Hinata was crying, although Naruto was unsure why. "Troublesome," muttered Shikamaru. He also believed Naruto was not the Kyuubi but was currently unable to form words as he was too mad. Choji stood behind Shikamaru, eating his way through his fourth bag of chips. "Thank you," said Naruto silently, as he left for his house. Shino was forgotten in all this. The news spread fast among everyone that Naruto had been banished, and the majority of the citizens were celebrating. Shinobis and kunoichis were getting rowdy and celebrating the fact that the demon that had plagued them for so long was gone. Only a few citizens and shinobi were depressed that a shinobi was being banished for doing his job. As night fell upon the town, people were still celebrating. Naruto, however, was gathering his meager items into his pack and getting ready to leave. Kakashi and even Jiraiya, his two teachers he thought he could depend on, never showed up to even say anything. As he was about to cry himself to sleep, somebody knocked on his door. He didn't want to get it, guessing that it was one of the people who hated him, but the knocking became insistent. He got up and opened the door and yelled, "What do you want? Can't you leave me in peace?" He looked up and saw it was Hiashi, clan head of the Hyuga clan. Behind him was Hinata, who was blushing and poking her fingers together, as she didn't know why she was here either. "May I come in, Naruto? I promise I won't hurt you," stated Hiashi. Stunned at this, he let them both in before closing the door. After Hiashi came in, he quickly closed all the windows and blinds before placing a silencing seal on the walls. "This conversation never happened, Naruto," stated Hiashi seriously. Naruto gulped, not knowing why he was here. "I have come to ask you for a favor," Hiashi said, surprising both Naruto and Hinata. "I need you to take Hinata with you on your exile." Hinata started to cry and tried her best to stop the tears. "My father doesn't even want me anymore," she thought sadly to herself. Naruto was mad. How could a father abandon her daughter like this? The next statement, however, surprised both of them. I do not have much time anymore from preventing my daughter from being branded with the caged bird seal. I do not wish for her to be locked up in a cage and sent to a loveless marriage, all to increase the Hyuga's wealth. I have tried my best, but the elders have decided against my decision to brand her and sell her off to someone. I would rather have her fly freely with someone whom she loves and become a missing nin than to see that happen, said Hiashi. He lowered his head to the ground, bowing to Naruto. Please, protect my daughter. Naruto was astounded that someone of Hiashi's status would be willing to bow to him, while Hinata was surprised and felt loved. All those years of insults within the Hyuga clan, and her father actually loved her, even if his actions did not seem like it. I promise I will dabeo. But why me? I thought you hated me, Naruto said. Hiashi laughed at this, scaring both pre-teens. I could never hate you. You are the son of my best friend. You know my family. Tell me please, interjected Naruto, desperate to learn about his family. All his life, people told him how he was unwanted, that he was abandoned. The third Hokage always said differently but never revealed his heritage to him. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to on the risk of treason, spat Hiashi. Naruto seemed to despair at this. I believe this is over. On a side note, I'm going to suddenly become absent-minded and drop something and never remember it at all. It might contain information about your family, though it would be best if you read it after you have left the village. Hiashi said as he stood up and, accidentally, dropped a scroll in front of Naruto. Hinata, come, we have much to prepare. As they left, Naruto was left stunned on his bed when he suddenly went into a trance and appeared in his mindscape. He looked around and saw the Kyuubi staring back at him. What do you want? Asked Naruto coldly. The Kyuubi could only sigh. I guess it is my fault you're being banished, Kit. Though I never understood why you wanted to be Hokage of this forsaken place. Naruto remained silent at this. It was true he wanted to be Hokage, but would never see it. Even if he hadn't been banished, he realized that the people would never allow him to become Hokage due to their hatred for being the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. My point being, is, as an apology, I'll help you train using my power, said the Kyuubi. Naruto instantly didn't trust him, but said he would consider it. That night, Naruto wasn't alone as he thought he would be. Tsuki and Ayame closed down their shop for the day and brought ramen to try to cheer Naruto up. Iruka came along with them, as they were all frustrated that Naruto had been banished for doing his job. In the end, all good things came to the end as sunrise came too soon. Naruto had packed all his belongings before preparing to leave. He left quietly out of Konoha, as he did not want to stay there any longer. Hinata had already been snuck out earlier by her father and was waiting at a tree where they had agreed to meet. After meeting with Hinata, both took one last look at Konoha before traveling west. The plan was to travel to Suna, where they might be able to find sanctuary. Before they even went 1 mile out, they were intercepted by two people they never expected to see. Neji and Tenten were waiting by some trees, with gears packed and seals ready to go. What are you guys doing here? Asked Naruto. Neji Nisan, Tenten, stuttered Hinata, terrified they were there to bring her back. Relax, we're going with you, stated Tenten. Hinata-sama, I have sworn to protect you. I cannot protect you if you leave, so I will accompany you, proclaimed Neji. At this, both Naruto and Hinata started to have tears in their eyes. They tried to convince them to go back, that they would be fine, but were unable to do so. Instead, they decided to stop after moving ahead a little more to allow Neji and Tenten more time to think about their decision before going too far out. The night quickly fell upon the four travelers, so they decided to rest at an opening they found. Naruto tried to convince Tenten and Neji one more time to head back, but both were stubborn. Neji swore to protect Hinata, and Tenten wanted to go with Neji while leaving Konoha's corruption. Since she was also an orphan, she wasn't really leaving anyone behind. Suddenly, some bushes shook from behind them. Grabbing their kunai and going into taijutsu stances, they met Hanabi and Konohamaru. Boss, Oni-san, cried out Hanabi and Konohamaru, both of them going to Naruto and Hinata and hugging them. What are you two doing here? You need to go back, it's not safe. Yelled Naruto. I'm not leaving you, boss. Cried out Konohamaru. I didn't want to be alone, Hinata-ne-san. Said Hanabi as she cried her eyes out. After letting tears flow out of all of them, Naruto finally asked the question that had popped out of their minds. How did you find us? Some ninjas lead us to you, they said they were going to help you, said Konohamaru. At this, they all froze. Inside Naruto's mindscape, the Kyuubi suddenly yelled out, Kit! Dodge! Move! Yelled Naruto. As they all moved, the ground they were standing on was suddenly filled with shurikens and kunai. Seeing how close to death they had just been, Hanabi and Konohamaru couldn't stop shaking. 10 shinobis with Anbu mask and the root sign on their masks appeared. Naruto Uzumaki, you will accompany us back to Danzo-sama where you will be trained for his greatness, stated their leader in a monotone voice. The shinobi looked around and saw the others. 3 Hyugas, 1 Sarutobi, and an orphan. You will all come with us for training with Danzo-sama too. You do not have any choice. I'm not going back to that hell hole. Yelled out Naruto as he took a fighting position. Everyone took up fighting positions until there was another interruption, making the situation seem worse. Well, if it isn't the Kyuubi brat, said Kisame. Naruto, come with us, said Itachi with an emotionless voice. Crap, this couldn't get any worse, thought Naruto. HMPH, let me take over for a while and I'll show them what it means to mess with me, the Lord of Foxes. Shouted the Kyuubi. Naruto shook his head, he couldn't trust the demon to protect his friends yet. Suddenly, one of the root Anbu made a hand seal, causing Neji to suddenly collapse in pain. The man removed his mask to show that he was a main branch Hyuga that had come under the disguise as a root Anbu. Ha ha ha, not only can we get rid of the weakling heirs of Hiashi, but we can also put the branch family in their place. Laughed the shinobi. Neji. The young shinobis cried out. Goo, leave me.S save yourselves, roared out Neji as he clutched his forehead. I won't leave you, cried Tenten. What do I do? Though Naruto. Everything was going bad, and a deal with the devil or a miracle could save them now. Said miracle suddenly came crashing through some trees. Incoming, shouted a figure before crash landing right into the middle of all of them. The Akatsuki members watched in amusement, young shinobis in confusion, and root without any emotion. Soon the dust cloud cleared out and a young man with slick black hair combed back with a few stray hair in front of his forehead came out from the crater he had created. He had a yellow tank top, blue wushu pants, and green wristbands. His brown eyes, though, told them that this was a warrior. Woot! New jump record, yelled the figure, clearly ignoring the situation he was in. He looked around before spotting Neji, who was still on the ground clutching his forehead. He was clearly assessing what was wrong with him. Naruto and Hinata took positions in front of him while the rest were still trying to get Neji up. Before anyone could move, he suddenly disappeared and reappeared in front of Neji. Before anyone could do anything, the man around removed Neji's headband and was curiously peering at the caged bird seal. Cool, souvenir, said the man as he put a piece of paper on Neji's forehead. Before anyone could figure out what was happening, a loud ripping sound could be heard, followed by a scream of sudden pain. Did he just put a piece of sticky tape paper on the brat's forehead? Asked Kisame curiously. Bastard, growled Naruto as he tried to tackle the man with Hinata, who completely dodged it without much effort. Wait, look at his forehead, exclaimed Tenten in shock. Everyone looked and saw that instead of the caged bird seal, there was now just a red mark on Neji's forehead. What? Impossible, growled the Hyuga. He ran up to the man to try to deliver a Juken strike to the man's heart. Before he could, though, a foot ended up right on his face. Nice job running into my foot, joked the man as his leg was stretched out in front of him. Frustrated, the Hyuga swiped the foot away and tried to hit him, but the man was too agile. You're within range of my divination. 8 trigrams 32 palms, yelled the Hyuga. Before the first palm even went off, the man grabbed the Hyuga by his wrists, effectively stopping the attack. Hope you're ready for a beatdown cause here it comes, shout the man as he broke both the Hyuga's wrist. The shinobi couldn't. even react as the other man tossed him down before laying a barrage of fists that even Itachi had trouble seeing with his Sharingan. Well, that was boring, said the man before looking around. At this, all the Root Anbu jumped into action. Hand seals were blazing through all of them, hoping to use a long-range jutsu to finish this dangerous man off. Fire style, fireball jutsu, yelled out many of them. Soon, 9 fireballs were flying towards the man, who was just standing there. Watch out, yelled Hinata. She couldn't stand to see someone who had saved them die. Naruto was about to use his shadow clones when the Kyuubi spoke up. Kit, watch carefully. Huh, grunted Naruto. The Kyuubi continued, this man isn't ordinary. He might be even more powerful than me. Before Naruto could comprehend what the Kyuubi just said, the man shifted his position a bit so that his left part of the body was facing towards the Root Shinobis. His left hand was covering his right fist that was behind his body. As the fireballs came closer, he threw his right fist out in front and yelled out, shotgun. Without the use of any hand seals, the man's hand glowed bright blue and started shooting out many tiny blue blasts from the fist. It went right through the fireballs, extinguishing them and hitting all the Root ninjas. Within seconds, they were all dead. Well, that was easy, said the man while rotating his arms around. He looked at the others, who were still in awe of him. Seeing this, he started bragging. I'm awesome, right? Said the man while his nose seemed to be growing longer. Everyone's sweat dropped at this. Itachi was the first one to shake it off before turning his attention back to Naruto, although he still kept a wary eye on the man. Come with us, Naru. Itachi stopped and noticed something wrong with this picture. Naruto no longer had a headband, which was weird since he wanted to become a Hokage from past facts. There were 2 clearly unmarked Hyugas and 1 X-marked Hyuga, and 2 other random people. None of them seemed to be on a mission, but rather were trying to run away. Before he could contemplate this further, the man suddenly stood between him and the children. Listen, buddy, I don't know why you want these brats, but if you want them, then you have to go through me first, stated the man as he pounded his fists together. Kisame looked gleeful and was about to attack when Itachi suddenly raised his hand first, cutting off Kisame from attacking. Kisame glowered at Itachi, but lowered his sword. Naruto, explain, are you no longer a shinobi? Itachi asked. At this, Naruto lowered his head in shame and tears, confirming that it was true. At this, Itachi took a step forward and turned to Kisame. This is where we part ways, he stated. Kisame looked at him confused. I made a promise to protect Konoha and uphold the Fourth's wishes. Clearly, Konoha has fallen from its grace, but I will not fail the other one. Leave if you do not wish to fight, for I do not wish to have to kill you. Kisame looked at Itachi as if he was crazy before sighing and sitting down. I may have joined Akatsuki for fun, but even still, you're still more fun to be with. I'll go with you and leave Akatsuki. Itachi stood still for a while before acknowledging Kisame's decision before turning to the man. Thank you for protecting them. No problem, replied the man. What's wrong with blonde, though? After everyone got comfortable around the campfire again, Naruto explained his story to all of them. After finishing his life's story, the man looked like he was ready to march to Konoha and destroy them. My foolish little brother, muttered Itachi, it looks like he has fallen further than I imagined, along with Konoha. In that case, why don't you come with me? Said the man. Everyone looked at him, thinking about before they decided to ask the big question. Where are you from? Asked Tenten, who had Neji's head on her lap. From the west, over that giant wall, stated the man. Everyone froze. They had been educated that anyone from the other side of the wall was dangerous. Kisame looked even more excited to fight him now. How did you wind up here? Asked Hinata. I jumped. Was doing a jumping contest against my friend and I took a bit too far, stated the man. I can protect you guys. Although I admit, you Easterners really are weak. Not much of us bother going over the wall since it usually repels most of us, but I'm an exception. Though I warn you, the West is really chaotic. Lots of fighting almost every day. They all looked at each other before agreeing to go with him. Naruto, Hinata, Tenten, Neji, Hanabi, and Konohamaru didn't have anywhere else to go now. Itachi was going to protect the Fourth's legacy, and Kisame was more excited to see the West, where he had heard that there were people even more powerful than him. Everyone packed up after sleeping at night and left in the morning. This is where it begins. This is where Naruto and his friends go to the West, where they never see the elemental nations until much later. This is where Naruto grows up, and along with his friends, becomes Emperor of the West. By the way, who are you, Datbeo? Asked Naruto. Right, never introduced myself. I'm the badass in my land. One of the strongest people in my land. The name is. 7 years later, the Imperial Palace of the West was a sight to see. Its majestic building along with its vibrant culture could be the envy of any nation. The gardens were filled with beautiful and rare flowers, all neatly organized to enhance the view. Inside the building, there was majestic red carpets with golden linings. Any place the carpet was not touching was high-quality wood, and the walls were made of finest materials. Doors were made of the best quality, and each door knob and intricately designed. On the walls were paintings, made by the most skilled artists. What were the paintings of? The subject was, of course, the emperor himself. Each painting could be seen with him in it, fighting and bleeding in war. Other paintings were peaceful ones, some of it with his family. Most people knew that this family had come from the east with one of theirs. Most of them scoffed when they first saw them, but they proved themselves to be worthy. After years of fighting and negotiating with various warlords, they rose and formed this new empire, the Empire of the West. In the centuries of fighting, there was finally peace in this land. Now, warlords who had fought against each other for blood and land now pledged loyalty to the emperor. The man himself was sleeping on a king-sized bed, slightly drooling. With his sun-kissed blonde hair, the man's most noticeable part of his face was the whiskers. Beside him was a beautiful woman with long dark blue hair and was currently cuddling with the emperor himself. Soon, the sun was up, the birds were singing, and splash! Both of them woke up with a water balloon thrown at their face. Time to wake up. Sputtering, Naruto and Hinata woke up, naked from their activities last night. Standing on the balcony was the man who brought them over to the West, Yusuke Urameshi. Next to him was a 6-year-old pink-haired girl named Yakiru Kusajishi. Hehehe, King-san and Booby-chan are awake. You'll pay for that, Naruto roared as the two pranksters quickly jumped off running. Before he launched himself out the window, Hinata grabbed him back. You don't want to go out without any clothes. I'm the only one who's allowed to see you in all your glory, said Hinata. Blushing, Naruto quickly put on some clothes. Before leaving to chase them, he kissed Hinata soundly before leaving. Hinata stretched her arms up before relaxing, letting her impressive bust jiggle a little. She looked out the window before getting dressed. As Yusuke and Yakiru were running from Naruto again, who was throwing random items at them to stop again, they passed by 4 people. There he goes again. Honestly, you'd think he would act his age for once, and not corrupt little children, too. Sighed Tenten as she was holding to Neji's hand. They had married around the same time Naruto and Hinata did, making it a double wedding. When they had first arrived at the West, there were so many things for them to learn. Luckily, Yusuke was there to help them, along with his friends. Although Hiei with his sarcastic manner would usually piss them off. After a year of living with them, Naruto then had the dream of uniting the lands, making it peaceful. At first, many laughed, but Yusuke thought it was a good idea. Since then, they went to other warlords and fought for lands, negotiated on others, and learned different skills. Tenten went under the tutelage of a ninja clan, who was led by Yuffie Kasaragi. I think Yakiru was already like that before Yusuke even reached him, replied Neji. He took the gentle fist to new heights after fighting so many different masters, especially those from the building of Ryazanpaku, where he trained with their grand disciple. The masters still kicked his butt after all these years, but he was closing the gap a little. Although small in members, each of their members was accomplished masters in their art. Hanabi and Konohamaru nodded in agreement with Neji. These two young shinobis were a couple a year after uniting the West. They kept arguing with each other so much before, but in the end, Konohamaru just gave up, grabbed her, and kissed her. Hanabi blushed so hard that she showed that she was indeed Hinata's sister and fainted. Both of them had learned so much from learning under Naruto and Neji, following them as their guides. "Stop moving," yelled Naruto as he started to throw kunais. Yusuke and Yakiru were still laughing as they ran out to the sparring grounds. Here, sounds of swords and other weapons clanging against each other could be heard. Yakiru quickly climbed up to the shoulder of Zaraki Kenpachi. "Ken-san." King-san not happy about a joke. She giggled. "Yakiru, we discussed this, don't climb onto me when I'm fighting," groaned Kenpachi. His opponent was actually Kisame, who just shrugged. We can fight later. Looks like Emperor's up anyways." On the side sipping his tea was Itachi. He just calmly greeted Naruto before returning back to his tea. "It's almost time for the Unification Festival, Naruto-sama," Itachi said as he sipped his tea. "Glad you have to deal with the paperwork," laughed Yusuke. When they had unified all of the West, Naruto had expected Yusuke to become emperor and was prepared to serve him. Then Yusuke just dumped it all into his lap, saying he wasn't suited for it, and that he needed to spend more time with his wife Keiko. Naruto shuddered. Keiko was a mere civilian, and yet she could easily tame them all with her fist. Even Kisame didn't try to actively piss her off on the threat she would make sashimi and shark fin soup. Having a powerful husband that could do that helped. Plus, everyone agreed Naruto had more charisma and leadership talent. Suddenly, a ninja appeared from the shadows. These ninjas had been trained to truly lie in the shadows, unlike the Eastern shinobis where flashy jutsus were used. The Brotherhood, once an independent guild of assassins, were joined by others and truly perfected the art of silent death. "My lord, 2 men wish to meet you. They claim to have intimate knowledge of your life back from the East." Suddenly, the atmosphere went cold. Naruto's life back at the East, along with all the other Easterners, were public knowledge except for Kisame. Nobody really cared since they knew he was violent and loved fighting, but was loyal enough. "I see. Have them meet me in the royal throne room. I'll be there shortly," Naruto growled. The ninja walked into the shadows and melded in, disappearing from sight. Naruto walked into the throne room to see 2 people he would have never imagined ever seeing. Especially since they never even saw him or say anything to him in the first place. "Jiraiya, Kakashi, what the hell do you 2 want?" Now, no need to get so hostile," said Kakashi, "especially since we're not with Konoha, T-Bin for a long time." Naruto stopped at that sentence, completely confused and surprised. "Let us explain what happened after you were banished," said Jiraiya. Flashback. "Jiraiya-sama, you came back from your lead?" asked Kakashi as he was walking back to the village. "It was a dead end for Akatsuki." "Nothing new from it," replied Jiraiya. Kakashi had been out for a mission while Jiraiya was following a lead. They met up and were currently walking back to Konoha. "Been a few days since I've been gone," said Kakashi. "Hopefully, the boys aren't fighting again. I was surprised to see Naruto learn the Rasengan. I had to lecture Sasuke about using Chidori on allies again before I left. Hopefully, our talk made him behave." Doubt it. Sasuke wants power. Hopefully, Tsunade Hime was able to rein him in," mused Jiraiya. They soon entered the gate to see a huge festival going on. Everyone was drinking and celebrating about something. What's the festival for?" asked Kakashi. He saw a random Junin pass by and asked. "You don't know, Kakashi. Today's a great day. We've finally banished the demon yesterday." "What?" said Kakashi and Jiraiya darkly. The Junin was too drunk to notice the tone change. "Yay, the council finally decided to banish that Kyuubi brat from Konoha on the premise of death. Banishment's too good for that kid, though. Should have executed him for harming Uchiha-sama. You should be happy, Kakashi. No more having to pretend to care about that Herc." The Junin couldn't find himself speaking anymore as Kakashi had suddenly lifted the Junin by his throat. His Hayate was already lifted, showing his Sharingan in full blaze. "You've broken the Sandame's law in front of children. Any last words?" growled Kakashi. "Stop." Kakashi looked around to see Anbu surrounding them. The law was lifted on the day of Naruto's banishment. Kakashi gave the Junin one more disgusted look before dropping him. "Where's Hokage-sama?" "There's no way she would have accepted this," said Jiraiya. After being pointed to her current residency, they charged in, about to confront her when they saw her state. She had sake bottles littered everywhere. Her hinge was off, showing she no longer cared. She stunk of sake, and it seemed like she hadn't taken a shower within 24 hours. What do you two want? Get out. Leave me in peace, she moaned as she drunkenly grabbed another bottle. After getting the full story from Shizune, Jiraiya stayed to help her with Shizune while Kakashi marched out. Just as he got out, he was confronted by Sasuke and the two elder advisors. Kakashi-san, it is the will of the council that you take Sasuke as your personal apprentice and teach him all your jutsus. You should be honored, Kakashi, having a Uchiha be your apprentice. Even with you fake Sharingan, you'll never reach the height of my clan. Be honored that you may teach a true Sharingan user, taunted Sasuke. Kakashi looked at them with an eye smile before he snapped. He leapt forward and snapped a back kick into Sasuke's stomach. He flew quite far, seeing as Kakashi didn't hold back. Kakashi, what have you done? You'll be taken to Ibiki for harming Uchiha-sama, yelled Homura. I'm punishing him for his attempted desertion of the leaf as his sensei, said Kakashi. It was the cursed seal's fault. I'm sure Uchiha-sama would have never left if it wasn't for that and the demon child, spat out Kaharu. That's bullshit and you know it. My seal would prevent it from acting up if he truly didn't want to leave, growled Kakashi. Nonetheless, you harmed the last Uchiha. Anbu, take him in, yelled out Kaharu. Halt, a voice rang out. Everyone looked to see Tsunade had finally left the building. She stared at them before talking. Why is that scum outside? I ordered my shinobis to lock him up, she pointed at Sasuke. Tsunade, be reasonable. If you jail him, it'll cause him to more likely to leave due to injustice, said Homura. Tsunade slammed her fist into the ground, causing the earth to shake. You have no right to countermand my orders on my shinobi. Also, that's Hokage-sama to you. After Sasuke was quickly taken to his house under house arrest, Kakashi went back to his house. 5 hours later, he was summoned to the council. Hitaki Kakashi, Shinobi Junin 009720, you have been summoned in front of the council to explain why you do not want to teach Uchiha-sama the jutsu he deserves to learn, including the Rasengan, said Homura. The Shinobi Council expressed their outrage at this ridiculous charge, while the civilian council was trying to convince the others the Uchiha should learn all that Kakashi had to teach and wanted to also have all the other clans teach him their clan jutsus too. Needlessly to say, it was a bedlam. Tsunade was about to yell for silence, the crackling of lightning, followed by many chirps that could be heard. Everyone looked to the source to find Kakashi with his Chidori blazing at full power. Now that I have your attention, I'd like to announce something. He took his hayate off and tossed it in front of Tsunade. I resign, effective immediately. Everyone was silent at this sudden announcement. Soon, a united uproar came into the room. Everyone was begging or asking Kakashi why. He remained silent, looking at Tsunade only. All right, fine. Kakashi is no longer a shinobi of the leaf. You are not allowed to join any other villages, though. Kakashi nodded at this before turning around to leave. Before he left, he added, I'm going out of town for a while. Been a long time since I've had a vacation. Tsunade immediately picked up the hidden meaning. He wanted to go find Naruto and ensure he was safe. All right, approved. You can go. Wait, everyone turned to look at Danzo, who stood up. If you wish to leave the village, you must relinquish the Sharingan and give it to a worthy successor. Kakashi tossed a scroll onto the floor and activated it, surprising everyone what was in it. There was a jar, and inside it was a floating Sharingan eyeball. Already took it out. Don't need it anymore, replied Kakashi before making a hand sign. Before anyone could react, the jar exploded, destroying the eyeball. I'm not letting anyone take Obito's gift, though. Anbu, seize him for destroying a precious resource, shouted Danzo. Kakashi laughed at this before suddenly dispersing into smoke, showing that it was a shadow clone. Curse him. Send out the hunter nins. We must kill him for doing such a travesty. Add him to the bingo book, said Homura. No, Tsunade's voice was loud and clear. He was officially discharged from service. Nobody will send anyone to find him. That eyeball was his, and he made sure that it wouldn't fall into enemy hands. This meeting is over. Flashback ends. Naruto was staring at Kakashi after they told him their story. He had just noticed that he was wearing a red headband that covered his left eye instead of his usual height. His eyes started to water at this revelation. His senseis didn't abandon him after all. They were just at the wrong place at the wrong time, and couldn't help him. Why? He asked. Kakashi took the time to pull out another scroll and unsealed what was inside it. A cabinet with 5 drawers appeared. As Kakashi pulled out each drawer, they could see it was full of paperwork in each one. This cabinet is records of all the time I tried to adopt you. Every time, I was blocked by the civilian council, who controlled the adoption process. Even after each rejection, I still tried. When they threatened me, I pushed back. This process continued until you finally became a shinobi, where I could no longer adopt you. Still, I pushed to become your sensei after that. The council only agreed if I took the Uchiha with you. When I left, I searched all over the elemental nations for you. I stayed with Koyuki after a while I couldn't find you. Imagine my surprise when she knew where you were. Naruto's eyes were streaming with tears now. After wiping them off, he asked, but you barely taught me anything. Even when I asked you to train me for the Chunin exam, you took Sasuke Tem and left me with Ebisu. Kakashi laughed. You really think it was coincident that the first place he took you to train Jiraiya was there? Plus the council forced me to teach him to make sure he would live against a Jinchuriki like you. Naruto realized that Kakashi had already planned with Jiraiya to have him train and make it seem like it was a lucky chance. Jiraiya took this chance to say his piece. After you left, I almost killed the civilian council. The only thing that stopped me was hope that I could find you. When I got a toad saying you took your name out of the contract and jumped over the wall, I was filled with misery. I couldn't tell Kakashi early as he already left, so I decided to do the same and leave Konoha. I claimed asylum with Koyuki-sama later, and she's going to star in my movie, Ika Ika Paradise. Jiraiya had a perverted grin at that before becoming serious. Still, the council would be flipping over if they knew whose child they banished, said Jiraiya. I already know who my parents are, replied Naruto. Kakashi and Jiraiya were surprised. Hiashi gave me a scroll explaining everything, and also gave me my inheritance. Huh, should have known Hiashi would be the one to tell. He was your father's best friend, said Jiraiya, before realizing something. Wait, your inheritance? Naruto nodded, before disappearing in a yellow flash. Huh, guess he learned it after all, chuckled Kakashi as he pulled out his green little book again. It was the latest Ika Ika novel. Naruto soon reappeared with Hinata, Neji, Tenten, Konohamaru, and Hanabi. The 5 of them were leaking huge bloodlust until Naruto, Kakashi, and Jiraiya explained what happened earlier. Soon, cheers and hugs were given. Asuma had almost had a heart attack when you disappeared, chuckled Kakashi to Konohamaru. Konohamaru flinched at the name. It's Maru. Now, I didn't want to be reminded of Konoha anymore. You guys know what's happening in Konoha right now? Asked Jiraiya. Back at Konoha, Konoha was at an all-time low. The village had no alliances to any major or minor villages anymore. Wave and Sand broke off all agreements, which was followed by Spring and many other places. In total, every place Naruto had been to that aided Konoha was now being thrown back in their face. At first, the whole village was ecstatic that the demon brat was finally gone, but they did not know the consequences that it would bring them. Even the fire daimyo was furious at them and cut down funding to save face against the other daimyos. They lost one of their best elite Junin and another Sanin in his spy network. Even though it is considered a major village, Konoha was now considered the weakest of all 5 villages, and its position would soon be usurped by the new Sound Village. The civilian council, however, didn't care and believed themselves to still be the strongest. However, a new development forced them to recognize the danger they were in. Iwa's Onoki died, and a new Tsuchikage took over who wanted Konoha burned to the ground. Kuretsuchi was slated for it but somehow disappeared. The Sound Village had allied itself with Iwa and declared war on Konoha. Without any allies, Konoha would die. What was even worse was Orochimaru had been accepted back in the Akatsuki with the disappearance of Itachi and Kisame. Inside the council room, if we don't find a way out of this, Konoha will fall, declared Tsunade. Her eyes were dull and bags could be seen from under her eyes, signifying she didn't have a good night's sleep. She hadn't had one ever since Naruto had been banished. I don't see what the big problem is, scoffed a pink-haired counselor by the name of Haruno. All we need is Uchiha-sama leading our army and we'll win. In fact, we should make him Hokage right now. While several of the civilian council agreed, all the others were looking at her if she was retarded. Now isn't the time for a new Hokage, said Danzo. If Konoha is to survive, we must look for someone to help us. Even if it means extending past the wall. Silence pervaded the council room at this statement. Then, outbursts could be heard. Everyone. Shut up, yelled Tsunade, causing everyone to become silent. Danzo is right, we have no choice. We don't have any alliances here. Perhaps we could strike an alliance with the West. We must find some way to send them an envoy of peace. Back at the Imperial Palace, Konoha is on the verge of being burnt to the ground due to the alliance of Odo, Iwa, and AIM with Akatsuki. I'm sure they are still looking for Bijus, but for some reason, most of them have disappeared excluding Gaara and Killer Bee, said Jiraiya. He wanted to explain more, but Naruto held his hand up. I already know what's happening there. My spies are in there, giving me information. As for the Jinchurikis, there is no need to worry. The rest of them are all here at the Western Empire. Jiraiya and Kakashi were surprised at that. They didn't think that the West could have sent agents in to spy and get the Bijus to a safe location. Konoha will try to seek us for an alliance and will most likely try to mercilessly exploit us. No doubt Danzo will demand submission, while Sasuke Tem will demand to be the emperor because he deserves it, continued Naruto. Naruto, I know you have no love for Konoha anymore, but I beg of you, convince the romper to at least deter or claim neutrality on this war. There are people still in there who still miss you, like Chuki and Ayame. Iruka hates that his adoptive little brother is gone, and Tsunade still can't get a good night's sleep, begged Jiraiya and bowed down, head to the ground. You wish to convince the emperor? Asked Hanabi. Jiraiya nodded as well as Kakashi. Maru laughed and all of them pointed at Naruto. He's the emperor, they giggled. At this, Jiraiya and Kakashi dropped the mouths right into the floor. They knew he had potential, but they couldn't imagine that Naruto would become the emperor. I'm not the strongest person in the empire, if that's what you're thinking, said Naruto quickly. There are still many people stronger than me even when I fully tap into Kurama's, Kyuubi's real name, power, but they pledged loyalty because they thought I could make the right decisions and lead the empire into a time of peace. Kakashi and Jiraiya looked at each eye to eye before they started to chuckle. Soon, it became a full-blown laughter, and it was contagious. After they all calmed down, Naruto decided to reveal his plans. You probably don't know, but we hold a grand fighting tournament here. There's one for taijutsu based only, one for weapons based only, and the last one will be any skills allowed. The general rule is killing is allowed, but discouraged, and the participants must follow the proctor's judgment. We hold it to see who's the best, although a select few choose not to participate to let others have a chance. This year, I've made contact with Koyuki for anyone who wants to participate in the tournament to gather at the Land of Spring, and everyone from the villages is invited to join, even Odo and Iwa. Before anyone could even make a protest, a voice rang out. A tournament with your old village. Sign me in. They looked to see Yusuke grinning like a maniac. Behind him was Itachi and Kisame, who decided to join in to see who came, as well as Yakiru. Jiraiya and Kakashi immediately took fighting position until Naruto waved them down. He explained the history behind Hitachi and why both of them came with him to the west, as well as telling them that Yusuke was the one who protected them and brought them over. Soon, lunch was served for them all. So, Naruto, who knows you're here besides us? And how did you get information about the elemental nations? Asked Jiraiya, interested in his spy network. It's the Pakera merchant house, replied Naruto. The merchant house had suddenly appeared in elemental nations and grew extremely quick, making it one of the successful merchandising organization. To see that underneath it was actually a spy ring impressed Jiraiya. They decided to forget about the East for the time being and eat and celebrate a reunion between an emperor, his godfather, and his dad's pupil who could have been his adopted brother. 2 weeks later, in Konoha, Tsunade was drinking again in her office early in the morning. She couldn't sleep without having nightmares, so she resorted to drinking to take away her misery. Minato. Kushina. I couldn't protect you, son. You must be so angry at me right now. She mumbled as she was about to take another sip when the door suddenly burst open. Hokage-sama, our sensor nins detected 4 unknown people headed our way, said the messenger. So, we get people from time to time now, she said. That's the thing. One of them has chakra levels as high as the 9-tailed fox, maybe even higher. Panicked the messenger. Tsunade stood up fast, shaking off all the drunkenness off her. A mysterious person coming to Konoha with a high-level chakra. 4 in total. Maybe Jiraiya found Naruto at last and was bringing him home. Tsunade could certainly reverse the banishment now that she had the Fire Daimyo's permission. Jiraiya had certainly told her he was going to look for him when he left her. Jiraiya. That name ached in her heart. For years, she had ignored and punched Jiraiya, but the man always had a place in her heart. Even during her self-exile, Jiraiya at least sent her letter or love notes. To see his face full on anger directed at her for being unable to protect his godson while he was out of the village was one of her worst nightmares, next to seeing Naruto's face when his dreams were crushed. Now that he was gone, she missed him so much. Truly, one doesn't know who they truly loved until they are gone. If Jiraiya asked her out on a date anytime, she would finally accept. Put up full alert. Nobody is to engage them. I will personally meet them at the front gates. Have the clan leaders do the same. She ordered the messenger. With that, she ran out of her office to get cleaned up. Tsunade was at the front gate with a nervous Shizune and other clan leaders. Hiyashi was still the clan leader of the Hyuga due to his strength, but the heir was now going to another main branch member by the name of Hideki who certainly enforced the traditional ways. There were rumors how he threatened the branch members with the seal if he didn't get his way, including raping married women. Nobody would confess due to the seal. Tsunade growled at this injustice, but was unable to do anything as it was clan business only. Soon, the 4 mysterious people could be seen in view. Tsunade's heart sank, as she didn't see white hair or spiky blonde on any of the strangers. Instead, 3 people were walking towards them, and the 4th one was sitting on the shoulder of the very tall man. As Tsunade looked at the tall man, she shivered. If words could describe him, Tsunade would say the man bathed in blood. The 4 stopped in front of them, and 2 of them bowed in respect. The tall one just stared at them while the child on his shoulder, well, she was looking at a butterfly. Greetings to the Hokage of Konoha. We are messengers of the Western Empire, here to extend an invitation to a tournament, greeted the woman. As soon as they heard, this bells could be seen ringing in everyone's head. They had been looking for a way to contact them, and they brought themselves here. Thank you for your greetings. Allow us to lead you to the council room, where we can discuss more of this, said Tsunade, leading them towards the tower. Before Tsunade could speak, Homura spoke first. Well, what brings you here to Konoha? He spat out, looking at them as if they were dirt. None of them responded. Answer us, you stupid bints, screeched Haruno Asuna. The messengers just looked at each other before looking straight at Tsunade. We were unaware that Konoha managed to employ banshees. Nonetheless, is it not courtesy to allow your esteemed leader to open up the conversation? Said the woman tactfully. The shinobi council chuckled at this statement while Homura and Asuna were left steaming. Indeed, I was about to ask when my advisor overstepped her authority. He will be heavily reminded of who was in charge, said Tsunade as she glared at Homura. May I ask your names and your business here as envoys of the West? The female nodded. My name is Furinji Mu, next to me is Shirahama Kenichi. The man with the child on his shoulder is Zaraki Kenpachi and Yakiru Kusajishi. We come on behalf of the Empire to invite Konoha to a tournament. There will be 3 of them, all held at the same place, but at different times to allow everyone to enjoy. The first one will be a taijutsu-based tournament. The second one is a weapons-only tournament. The last one is where anyone can use anything, as long as you obey the proctor. We can explain it in more details later if you like. You will be allowed to enter a maximum of 7 contestants for each one. The person can join more than one tournament, but it will count as one of your entries, of course. I suggest you bring your strongest members to the tournament, otherwise you might not escape humiliation from the other villages. HMPH, I could win this easily, said a voice. The visitors turned to see Uchiha Sasuke smirking, who had taken the council seat of the Uchiha clan. Each of them frowned as they remembered who it was that caused Naruto to be banished in the first place. I am an elite. Nobody stands before me. Well then Uchiha-san, you're volunteering to go to the tournament I presume, said Kenichi. He did not like how he was eyeing Mew. Know your place, scum, growled Sasuke, his Sharingan blazing. Uchiha Sasuke, turn off your Sharingan. It is forbidden to do that without permission, yelled Tsunade. Sasuke ignored her until the pink-haired girl suddenly appeared in front of his face. Everyone was surprised at the girl's speed and hadn't even noticed her move. Hehehehe, stupid duckbutt doesn't know how to listen or stare, giggled Yakiru as she poked Sasuke's eye with her 2 fingers. The Uchiha roared in pain at this sudden poke and fell down to the ground. He opened his eyes, allowing everyone to see he could still see, although his Sharingan was now off and his eyes were red. Yakiru, don't go poking strangers. You don't know what you'll catch, lectured Mew. Hi, Yakiru replied as she jumped back onto Kenpachi's shoulder. Anbu, seize them for attacking the Uchiha, yelled out Kaharu. Enough. Tsunade slammed her fist into the desk, causing everyone to become silent. It is his own fault for not obeying my order. Do it again, Uchiha, and you will be taken to Anko and Ibiki again. Sasuke growled but obediently obeyed. He knew that she had no real power to do so as long as the civilian council and the elders worshipped him. As my companion was continuing, said Kenichi, the tournament is where our people test their limits. Hold up, I have a question, said Danzo. Kenichi looked at Tsunade, who nodded and allowed Danzo to continue his question. What do you mean by other villages? Asked Danzo. Simple. You are not the only major village being invited to this tournament, replied Kenichi. About now, Kumo, Suna, Iwa, Kurigakure, and even Odo should have received envoys to be invited to this tournament. Tetsu has been given the same offer for weapons. Everyone was silent at this. Tsunade picked up the conversation. You mean, you're also inviting our enemies? Rest assured, you will all have different quarters and will be heavily monitored. No fighting unless it's in the tournament will be allowed. The cages will be allowed to enter the tournament, but is restricted to one tournament choice only. We do encourage them to come watch if they do not wish to participate. We will also allow a maximum of 10 people outside the competitors to accompany you. You will all meet at the Land of Spring, where we will provide transportation to the west, where the tournament will be held. Your daimyos have already been notified and have agreed on a ceasefire in any war for now. The prize money for winning the tournament is 0.100 million ryo. The council held their breath. With that much money, Konoha would have enough to funds for the war. Until Kenichi said, each. At this, the council burst into cheers. Here was a way to be able to make sure Konoha was the strongest again. They didn't even bother thinking about if they lost. The civilians were too busy imagining the Uchiha bringing home the money. While there was much talk, Danzo kept his eye on Kenpachi. This man, his chakra level is off the roof. If I use my Kotoamitsukami on him, I would have a powerful tool to help me kick Tsunade off and become Hokage, like I should have been. I could rule all the elemental nations. And why stop there? I could have this whole continent bowing before Konoha, thought Danzo. He subtly activated his eye, making sure nobody was paying attention to him and directed it right at Kenpachi. He made sure he used as much chakra as he could to influence him. However, he hit a huge snag on that part. Kenpachi felt the genjutsu and started chuckling. Before long, it started to get louder, catching everyone's attention. Soon, his maniacal laughter could be heard from even the people trying to eavesdrop outside the chamber, and that was something since there were heavy silencing seals to prevent eavesdroppers. All right, who challenged me? Laughed Kenpachi. He drew his sword out, allowing them to get a closer glance at it. It didn't seem special and had jagged edges over it. Before they could think about it, Kenpachi's chakra shot up. A visible yellow aura could be seen around him, and it was growing. Cracks could be seen in the council room, and all the civilian council fainted and relieved themselves of their waste. The shinobi council had trouble trying to prevent themselves from following the same fate. The roof started to let out streams of dust, letting them know that if Kenpachi continued, the roof would fall on them. The Anbu were rooted to their position, fearing too much against the man, until Mew actually stood in front of them. "Stop," she said calmly. All of a sudden, that suffocating feeling stopped. Kenpachi glared at her for a while, before reluctantly agreeing to it. "Ken-chan, you made me drop a chocolate," pouted Yakiru from his shoulder. She hadn't even moved when Kenpachi raised his chakra levels. "What on earth happened?" asked Shikaku. "My guess. Someone tried to influence Kenpachi or put him in a genjutsu, which doesn't really work on him since he's very bloodthirsty. Either way is one sure way to make him think someone's challenging him," shrugged Kenichi. "Makes you wonder, though, who did it?" Tsunade growled at this. Someone had actually tried to control an envoy of the West. This action could have brought the West into the war as enemies, something Konoha did not need. "I apologize for this. It was not my intent, nor was it my order, to do such a travesty to you all. Please, allow me to provide a room for you to rest for the night. I promise nobody will try such a thing again. As for the tournament, Konoha accepts." "Acceptable. We will leave tomorrow morning back to the Empire to give your answer. The tournaments start in a month, and will last for 6 days. We will graciously host everyone for 9 days. 2 days to get used to our empire, and 1 day to allow yourselves to pack up and leave. We will, of course, provide food, medical assistance, and beds for you all free of charge," replied Kenichi as he bowed with Mew. All of them went walking towards the exit. Wait, stuttered Homura. "You need to be punished for such actions in the council room. Perhaps as hostages with Ibiki and Anko at the T&I department until the tournament will teach you." At this, Kenpachi felt this had gone long enough. He ripped his eye patch off, showing that he could see perfectly with his right eye. This surprised all the conscious shinobis until he turned his gaze back at them again and let loose. The yellow aura could be seen again, except this time it thickly saturated the air. A huge skull could be seen forming above him. "Just try it, punks. I could use a good fight, though it doesn't really seem like everyone in this village would even provide a good warm-up." Mew and Kenichi showed no signs of even remotely trying to stop him. Kuromaru was trying to dig his way out now, his animal instincts telling him to escape. Now, several of the clan heads had followed the civilians' example and fainted, along with the elders. The only people who were still conscious was Tsunade, Hiyashi, Sume, Shikaku, Inochi, Chuza, Asuma, and Danzo, but barely. Tsunade was able to break out of her fear before yelling, "Stop! I promised you all safety, and I'll ensure it. The elders will be brought to the T&I department for suggesting such a thing." Kenichi nodded and put his hand on Kenpachi's arm. Kenpachi just made a tisk noise before putting his eye patch back on and left. "Be warned, our rules are quite strict. Do something like this again, and the offender will be executed, no hesitation. Once you have made your decision on who will compete and who will accompany them to visit, give your list to the Pakara Merchant House. They are the West's merchant house, after all," Kenichi mentioned before leaving. The shinobis let a sigh of relief out for avoiding such danger when Tsunade whirled upon all of them. "Get them all up. I want everyone interrogated. I don't want people who would blatantly try to undermine my authority and think they could get away with it. This includes the elders. Nobody is exempt. No exceptions," commanded Tsunade as she ran out the room. She would use the Senju compound to house the visitors, but she needed to make sure that it was clean enough. Also, she needed to relay a command to all shinobis. Nobody was allowed to harass them. Danzo was there, steaming. How could Koto Mitsukami fail him? Perhaps he needed to see a doctor and make sure that his Sharingan that he liberated for the good of Konoha was working. When Sasuke woke up, he was disgusted and quickly left to change clothes. His thought process was, how could that man be so much more powerful to me? I should have that. I must get it to kill Itachi, who I'm sure is out there somewhere. His thoughts turned towards the female envoy. I must have her. She will be able to provide powerful children to revive the Uchiha clan. Her beauty belongs to me, just as everything else should be. At all the other major shinobi villages and samurai village. While Konoha received their invite, all the other villages were met with envoys of the West. Suna, Tetsu, Hiri, and Kumo, although wary, accepted peacefully. Iwa and Oto had a bit more trouble. Iwa tried to kill them while Oto tried to keep them hostage for Orochimaru to experiment on. Unfortunately for both of them, they found the tables reversed easily. Yusuke was part of the envoy to Iwa and just blasted their Anbu during the meeting with a shotgun. Oto was met with Nico Robin, who just broke their ninja's back using her Hana Hana no Mi to grow arms all over the ninjas with a clutch before they could do anything. She was accompanied by her husband, Roronoa Zoro, who merely needed to stare at them before they decided to stop. They also accepted. To nobody's surprise, that group took longer to get back to the west due to Zoro. Tetsu agreed for weapons tournament only. Back at Konoha, hee, I'm hungry Ken-chan. Let's go eat. Mew mew, Kai-chan, giggled Yakiru after the group had explored Konoha a bit after the meeting. Many citizens were still staring at them, but they ignored it. I wouldn't mind getting something to eat, either. Let's head to that place for lunch, said Kenichi, pointing coincidentally at Ichiraku Ramen. Before they could enter, they were intercepted by several shinobis. They were the leftover bunch of genins in Naruto's generation: Shikamaru, Choji, Ino, Sakura, Shino, Lee, and Kiba. So you're the envoys of the West, huh? Troublesome, said Shikamaru. Choji just kept eating his chips, while Ino and Sakura were carefully studying Mew. Her chests, her well-toned body, and her beautiful legs were certainly something to be envious of. Compared to her, they felt lacking in several departments. Kiba was busy panting like a dog, seeing a beautiful woman, while Shino, was still Shino. Before anyone could do anything, Lee ran in front and kneeled, carrying flowers. "Oh loveliest of beauty, please go out with me. My name is Rock Lee, and my flames of youth tells me you are the perfect match for me, for we both wear spandex suit," yelled out Lee. Everyone's sweat dropped at this intro. The envoy's first impression was that this man's eyebrows were huge. Mew just looked at him before chuckling a little and replying, "I apologize, Lee, you're not my type. Also, I'm already happily N. This woman obviously deserves an elite, like me. Lee, make yourself useful and go bug off. She's obviously going to become one of my wives," interrupted a voice. Everyone looked with disdain as Sasuke stepped forward. Everyone except Sakura, who was still using her loud voice to proclaim how the Uchiha was the greatest. Ino had finally seen the light, though quite forcefully by a combination of Inochi, Anko, and Shikamaru, and stopped trying to chase Sasuke. She was able to recognize that Sasuke was a jerk, and didn't deserve her attention. Her focus, right now, were a bit more focused on looking for other men, especially the lean-looking man next to Mew. "How about it, Mew-san? Come with me, and you'll bear my children to help repopulate the Uchiha clan. You obviously deserve someone of my elite status," said Sasuke. Without hearing a reply, he went to grab her hand to pull her towards his home. With luck, he could expect a baby within 9 months. While he was still dreaming, a punch met right into his face. He flew back due to the impact and rolled quite a bit before impacting on a wall, and went through it. Shaking his head, he saw that Kenichi had just punched him and was standing in front of Mew. "Do not touch my fiancé," shouted Kenichi. Sasuke growled. This puny man was engaged to the ethereal beauty. Before he could attack, Sakura screamed and threw a punch at Kenichi. "You bastard! How dare you attack Sasuke-kun? Stand still so I can beat you," screeched Sakura. Kenichi merely dodged all of them but didn't counterattack. "Why aren't you attacking back?" questioned Ino. She knew this man could have countered Sakura. "Sorry, it's a principle of mine to not hurt women," said Kenichi, dodging a kick. "Then stand still so I can hit you," screamed Sakura. "That's why I'm here, to hit women that Kenichi won't hit," said Mew, blocking a fist and uppercutting Sakura. Mew then gripped Sakura's neck and kneed her in the chest several times. She then whirled around Sakura, grabbing her head and using it as a center. Mew kneed Sakura in the head again while spinning. She then used the momentum to toss herself up into the air. Sakura, still dizzy from all the attacks she took, didn't notice the danger that was coming and fell to the floor. Spinning like a high-speed drill, one of Mew's leg was straight up, showing how flexible she was. With one of her legs up, and her hugging that leg, the remaining pivot leg came crashing down into Sakura. The ground behind Sakura broke. Furinji Kovyoku, Miu yelled. To the audience who saw this, they could have sworn that feathery wings sprouted at the end of her attack, with Miu at the center of it. Such power, such grace, such beauty, she will belong to me, thought Sasuke as he prepared to use his Sharingan to hypnotize this woman to come with him. Before he could do such a thing, a pan met with his face, knocking him unconscious. I've told you before, Uchiha scum, you're not allowed to stop within 100 feet of my shop and my daughter after that stunt you tried to pull, yelled Tsuki, who had come out to see what was going on. Anbu units appeared before them. Miu and Kenichi were ready to fight, when one of the Anbu with a dragon mask stepped forward. Do not worry, we are here to arrest Haruno Sakura and Uchiha Sasuke for harassing you. Hokage-sama ordered all shinobis to not do so. Unfortunately, it seems Uchiha-san thought himself above the rules. They will be taken to the T&I department to be re-educated on following orders. The Anbu took Sasuke to Anko, while Sakura was first taken to the hospital for treatment. Kiba whistled. He wanted to hit on Miu, but he knew when to back off if a woman was already claimed by another man. And the woman didn't seem afraid to kick him in the balls if she needed to, and Kiba preferred to remain a man. That was powerful, said Shino. You folks are certainly welcomed in my shop if you don't like the Uchiha, laughed Tsuki. After a quick introduction, the envoys went into the ramen shop while the rest of the shinobis went onto their own business. Orders were quickly placed, and soon 4 steaming hot ramen were ready. Tsuki didn't notice that Miu had subtly placed a silencing seal on the flaps, so nobody could overhear what they would say while they were eating. This ramen is pretty good. I can see why Naruto recommended this place, said Kenichi casually as he finished his meal. Ayame and Tsuki froze up at that statement before tears started to fill their eyes as they remembered the little boy they had come to see as family. Where is he? Please, tell me where my favorite little brother went, sobbed Ayame. She was so heartbroken when Naruto was banished that she could barely help out at the shop. The Uchiha tried to take advantage of her and wanted to practice making babies with her while saying any child wouldn't be part of the Uchiha clan and should be proud he lowered himself to her. That day, Sasuke found out that a ramen cook that occasionally dealt with ninjas and was filled with rage shouldn't be trifled with. Kenichi looked around to make sure nobody was listening in before continuing. He's fine right now. He's at the Western Empire. Naruto wishes that he could see you two again, but couldn't risk dying. He tossed a pouch to Tsuki. This should more than cover our meal and all the meals Naruto ate at your place on his tab. As they all left to head back to the location Tsunade had promised to let them sleep at, Yakiru mentioned, that was good, to-kun, Aya-chan. If you wanna leave with us, just show up, see ya, as Kenpachi opened the flap to let them all out. As soon as they left, Tsuki and Ayame quickly closed the business for the day before rushing upstairs to the privacy of their house. They opened the pouch to see priceless gems and gold. What caught their attention, though, was a letter with Naruto's handwriting. Opening it up with shaky hands, they read the letter. Soon, the letter became illegible as tears were dripping down on the letter. Quickly, they burned it to show now proof. As it was burning, Tsuki looked at Ayame and said, "Well, I think it's time we relocated our business. We haven't been doing well here, and I see a prospective place we can open." After the incident with the Uchiha, nothing much happened after. Anko saw that Miu didn't wear a bra like her, but asked what else she didn't wear. When Miu told her that she felt like any lingerie was too constricting and didn't wear it, Anko left with a nosebleed and muttering about leaving her underwear behind. Rock Lee felt crushed that the only spandex-wearing girl was already engaged, but didn't allow it to dampen his flames of youth. Rather, he worked even harder for the tournament that was to come. Sasuke was forbidden from even seeing the envoys until they left. The elder advisors tried to argue against that, but Tsunade was adamant about it. They needed to be able to talk to the West in good terms, and stealing and forcefully raping one of the envoys was not a good way to start. Morning arrived, and the envoys gathered at the gate. Tsunade decided to say farewell in person, along with Hiyashi and a few others. Kenichi shook Tsunade's hand before leaning in and whispering something in her ears. They left shortly after. If they paid attention, they would have noticed that Ayame and Tsuki had left with them, but all eyes were at Kenpachi, who was flaring his chakra for amusement. Everyone left to attend to their own business except for Tsunade, who was standing there, shocked from what Kenichi had just told her. "Hiyashi, Asuma, come with me," she commanded. Puzzled, the two of them followed her into her house. Tsunade would have chosen the Hokage's office, but didn't feel like it was secure enough for this. Inside her house was a private room where the Shodaime Hokage built personally, preventing any type of seal or eavesdroppers from listening. "All right, Hokage-sama, what's this about?" said Asuma as he chewed on his unlit cigarette. After marrying Kurenai, he stopped smoking for their baby's safety. She was born 2 years after Konohamaru left to chase Naruto. His action devastated him and his brother and felt like they had failed their father. Kurenai helped him from his misery and married shortly after. "It's about the Konohamaru and your children and nephew, Hiyashi. They're alive along with Naruto in the West." Hiyashi stood still at this announcement. He had prayed that they were safe, but always feared for the worst. Soon, his stoic visage shattered, he fell to his knees, crying all those tears he had not allowed to show in front of anyone. Asuma wasn't holding back either and was crying. Tsunade felt a huge burden being lifted off her. Naruto was still alive. After tears were shed, Tsunade told them her plan. "I'm going to go see the tournament. Konoha can last without me for a little. No doubt the other villages' Kage will also attend. There's no way they would miss out on a chance to see the West without any danger. I'm taking Shizune as part of the escort, and I'm extending the invites to you too. I will attend. Anything to see my children and nephew again," stated Hiyashi. "Is it possible to invite my wife and child? I was planning to participate in this tournament, and I don't feel safe leaving them here alone without me," asked Asuma. Tsunade thought about it before accepting his conditions. "Naruto," Tsunade thought, "I failed you once already. I won't let anyone prevent me from seeing you again." At Akatsuki Base, the West has sent invitations to all the major villages and has decided to invite Oto, too, reported Orochimaru. Everyone had summoned shadow images of themselves to the base to plan for the future. It had been hard to grab the Bijus. Now they all went missing except for Gaara and B, who were well protected. Several times, they cornered some, but they all managed to escape due to mysterious circumstances. Gaara managed to defeat them in his own village, although not without some sort of mysterious help. Deidara's bomb suddenly fizzled at the last moment, allowing Gaara to recover and push them back. Next time, Gaara was well prepared for the bomber. It didn't help that Itachi and Kisame suddenly went Mia. Even the Sanbi Jinchuriki, the one Tobi hypnotized, mysteriously disappeared. He had been overthrown, and was about to be killed when something intervened. The end result was he was gone with the wind. They have also asked the Kages to come visit. If Konoha's Kage does leave, this could be our chance to strike. They are desperate for the prize money, continued Orochimaru. "To be honest, I wouldn't mind entering myself," said Kakuza. "That much Ryo, plus the chance to collect a few worthy bounties would be worth it, especially what happened last time." "You think too much of money, Kakuza. Jashin does not like those who worship money. Although the tournament would provide many sacrifices for Jashin, too," yelled Hidan, before he started to praise Jashin over and over again. Pain muted him, to the relief of everyone. They had finally figured out how to mute someone if they got too noisy, and used on Hidan most of the time. Hidan was never told about the mute button and so never noticed that nobody was listening to him. "Orochimaru, you will also go as Kage to the tournament. We cannot allow the Konoha to have the chance to gain so much Ryo at once. This can also serve as a good time to spy on the West while gaining money for our cause," commanded Pain. "Take Zetsu with you. He will remain hidden and be useful for spying." Orochimaru nodded, pleased to be able to see the West. He had heard many things about them and wanted to explore and exploit them. If he was lucky, the Emperor would be a fool and allow him to possess his body. Then he would become emperor of such a large nation and perhaps become immortal. Continue as planned, earn money, and locate the Bijus. Do not attract attention to our group. Dizumi. "Actually, there's one more thing the envoys mentioned to me," interrupted Orochimaru. Conan coldly stared at him for disrupting Pain and not bringing it up earlier. "They told me that I was allowed to bring Akatsuki members as part of the visiting group and/or participants. It seems their spy network extends farther than I thought if they already knew I'm part of this group. Everyone blinked. They were all S-class missing nins, and they were getting invited to participate in the tournament. All right then. Deidara, Hidan, Kakuza. You three will participate in the tournament. Hidan will go for the weapons-only tournament while the other two will be in the last one. Dismissed. All right, I can sacrifice more people for Jashin. Yelled out Hidan. Nobody heard as the mute button was still on him. Back to the envoys. So, how are we getting there? Asked Ayame as she was carried by Kenichi. Miu gave her dirty looks but understood that they needed to get to their location fast. Kenpachi was carrying Chuki. We're not running all the way back, if that's what you're thinking, replied Kenichi. They stopped at a spot before Yakiru took out a gun and shot a flare up into the sky. Soon, a loud rumbling noise could be heard. Chuki and Ayame looked up in awe and shock at the sky before it came down. We're going back in style, grinned Miu before they all got in and went back to the west. At the palace, Naruto was at his usual council meeting. His council was actually quite uncorrupted, for each one had to be tested and pledged loyalty to help the people, not themselves. He had a clone back in his office doing paperwork. He sighed. Oh, how he loved to abuse the crap out of shadow clones. It was so useful. It didn't make sense why none of the other cages ever used this jutsu. He made a slightly perverted grin. Hinata and he would use it during their activities, in their bed. There was just so many different ways they could go at it, and it would seem Hinata was more perverted than him. It was always the quiet ones, wasn't it? Naruto-sama, you're doing it again fufufufu, scolded Oki, one of Naruto's greatest general. Naruto shook his head out of his daydream. Oki seriously scared him sometimes. His personality and the way he acted around people creeped him out sometimes, but as a general and friend, he was irreplaceable. I will admit, Kit, your vixen does certainly keep you entertained and wanting for more, said Kurama. We have received word of that all the villages have accepted and will convene at the Land of Spring, announced a counselor. Naruto grinned. This would be so much fun to see. 1 month later, after receiving invitations to the tournament, every village held their own mini-tournaments and made decisions on who would go. Soon, their decisions were made and the list was sent to the Pakara merchant house. Everyone was surprised that the merchant house that had made such an impact on them, bringing foreign goods, actually belonged to the West. They were a bit cautious about them but decided it wasn't worth attacking in fear of angering the West. That, and they had high-level seals in each of their stores that it was not worth the manpower to break in. The list was as followed. Leaf, Taijutsu, Sasuke, Lee, Kiba, Guy, Hideki, Choji, Sakura, forced in by Asano. Weapons, Asuma, Yugao, 3 random Junin, Chunin. Mixed, Sasuke, Kiba, Shikamaru, Shino, Anko, Sai, Tenzo. Visitors, Tsunade, Shizune, Hiyashi, Kurenai and Child, Hana, Ino, Homura, Ebisu, Uruka. Suna, Taijutsu, 5 random Junin, Chunin. Weapons, Tamari, Matsuri, 4 other random Junin, Chunin. Mixed, Tamari, Baki, 5 random Junin. Visitors, Gara, Konkuro, Chio, 2 civilian council members. Kumo, Taijutsu, C, 4 random Joinin, Chunin. Weapons, Darui, B, Samui, Atsui, Karui, Omoi. Mixed, A, B, Darui, C, Samui. Visitors, Mabui, J, 3 civilian council member, 2 shinobi council member. Kiri, Taijutsu, 4 random Junin, Chunin. Weapons, new 7 swordsman group, led by Chojuro and Suigetsu. Mixed, Chojuro, Suigetsu, 4 random Junin. Visitors, Mei, Ao, elder advisor. Iwa, Taijutsu, 6 random Junin, Chunin. Weapons, 4 random Junin, Chunin. Mixed, Akatsuchi, Suzembaki, 5 Junin. Visitors, 4th Tsuchikage, naming him Tsutomu, 3 random members of council, 4 shinobi bodyguard. Oto, Taijutsu, 5 random Junin, Chunin. Weapons, Hidan, 3 random Junin, Chunin. Mixed, Shin, Kotoheim, Orochimaru, Deidara, Kakuza. Visitors, Karen, Arashi, Zetsu black and white, Kabuto. Tetsu. Weapons, Mifune and his 4 top samurais. Around 120 people traveled to the land of spring, wondering how they would get to the west. They imagined that several ships would be waiting for them. Each of them could not wait to see what the west had for them, and of course, were ready to show how superior they were. They couldn't see how wrong they were. At the land of spring. Soon, everyone had gathered there around noon. There were, of course, sparks of anger and restlessness among all the shinobis. Seeing their enemies so close, and yet unable to do anything about due to their daimyos agreeing to a ceasefire made them nervous. Tsunade certainly growled when she saw Orochimaru smirking at her. The Iwa ninjas were staring at Konohas with hatred. Troublesome, said Shikamaru, if the West doesn't do something, a fight's gonna break out. Agreed, rang a voice. The Konoha group turned around to see Gaara leading his Kazekage-sama. The Konoha group bowed. Gaara was furious at Konoha when he heard that Naruto was banished, and broke off all alliance with them. He tried to send his shinobis after Naruto to offer sanctuary as Sunanin, but was too late. Naruto had disappeared, and Gaara was depressed. He made it his dream to become Kage for himself and Naruto. Every time Gaara saw Sasuke now, he had to resist the impulse to sand coffin his body. It's been a long time, Gaara dono, said Tsunade. Gaara merely nodded. He was also still mad at Tsunade for not being able to do anything. While Konoha and Suna mingled for a bit, with Shikamaru flirting with Temari, a weird sight to see, the rest of the shinobi villages and the samurai kept to themselves. Soon, a loud ringing noise could be heard, and everyone looked to the source to see Koyuki standing in front of them all with a loudspeaker. Attention, attention. The ride to the west will arrive in approximately 10 minutes. Please be prepared and take all you items with you. Do not cause trouble, or you will be escorted off my land and miss the tournament. Man, that's the daimyo who's also the actress who starred the main character in the latest and hottest movie ever, Ika Ika Paradise. That's hot, said Atsui. What if the ride doesn't come in 10 minutes, what if it's a trap? Then we'll all be stuck here with no allies, and the Omoi kept continuing until Samui hit him on the head to shut him up. 10 more minutes, huh? Hopefully, nothing will happen, said Shizune, until she looked up at Koyuki. Wait, isn't that? She pointed at the person next to Koyuki. The Suna and Konoha group, as well as Kumo and Kiri all, looked to where she was pointing. Gravity-defying silver hair, a bandana that covered his left eye, wearing a face mask that covered everything but his eye, and carrying the trademark orange book, everyone recognized him. Kakashi, yelled out the Konoha group. He turned around to the voice, looking at them, before turning his attention back to his book. Everyone face-faulted at his attitude, while Guy was moaning about his ex-rival's hip attitude. Tsunade was about yell for him when he noticed another person, someone she had not seen in 7 long years. Long white hair, red lines on his face, a horned forehead protector with the kanji oil. Jiraiya was also here. Her heart leapt. Maybe she could convince him to come back. Maybe she would have the chance to finally date Jiraiya, even if it meant dealing with his perverted personality. Jiraiya noticed the Konoha group and gave a small wave before noticing Tsunade. In her eyes, he noticed that she had not slept well at all. Even though she kept continually rejecting him, Jiraiya always cared for her no matter what. He was surprised to see that within those brown eyes, a glimmer of hope had been brought back in, as well as love. Shaking it off, he tapped Kakashi on the shoulder, signaling him to come with him to greet Konoha at least. Sighing, Kakashi put his book away, but not before pulling his mask down and giving Koyuki a peck on the lips. Koyuki giggled and blushed, but kept her calm. Putting back his mask, he shunshined down to where Konoha was with Jiraiya. "What's up?" he asked casually. Everyone who cared except for Sasuke, Hideki, and Homura, were staring or pointing at him, stuttering. Finally, Ino was able to talk first. "You're Koyuki-sama's boyfriend," she shrieked. Everyone automatically looked at the person who was supposedly Koyuki's boyfriend. "Nope," said Kakashi, causing everyone looking to Facefo. Clearly, he had kissed her, so that didn't make sense. "Baka Kakashi, you're playing with her feelings," screeched Sakura, who Kakashi ignored. "How unyouthful, my ex-rival." You shouldn't play with a maiden's feeling, shouted Guy, with Lee supporting for him. Did you say something, Guy? Kakashi asked, causing Guy to cry crocodile tears. If you're not dating her senpai, then what are you doing? Asked Tenzo. She's my fiancé, said Kakashi nonchalantly. Everyone froze at that announcement. They just noticed that Kakashi was actually wearing fine silk robes, like Koyuki. Yep, confirmed Jiraiya. He and Koyuki-sama will be getting married soon. He even starred as my male cast in my movie, too. He said with a perverted grin. What? That's so not hot, moaned Atsui. That man got good move, you've already lost. To get a gal like her, need to be smooth, like groove, rapped B, who was instantly subjected the Iron Claw from A. Well, it was good seeing most of you. I have to get back to escorting my fiancé, said Kakashi before shunshioning back to her. Jiraiya was about to do the same when he felt a pull on his clothes. Turning around, he was surprised to see Tsunade holding on to his clothes. Except for this time, she was like a child who had lost her way and was now clinging onto him like a lifeline. Tsunade Haim, Jiraiya asked. Please, don't leave me, Tsunade wept. I didn't know how much you meant to me when you left. I finally get to see you after 7 years. Don't leave me so fast now. Seeing her in this state broke Jiraiya's heart, and so he hugged her, surprising Tsunade. Usually, Tsunade would be punching him for being so affectionate, but this hug felt warm and comforting. Don't worry, my Haim. Everything will be alright. I promise to be back again soon. I'm coming to the west with Koyuki's party. They were invited, too, whispered Jiraiya before letting her go. Tsunade wanted more hugs but knew that she had an image to maintain. Jiraiya shinned back to where Kakashi was to see Koyuki with a teasing smile. So, after so many years, you finally got the girl of your dreams, teased Koyuki. Jiraiya just turned around, not letting her see his red face. A beeping noise could be heard from her watch all of a sudden. She looked at it quickly before grinning. Attention everyone. All chatter ceased at this announcement. The ride to the west has just arrived. All the attendees turned their attention to the sea, trying to see if there was a boat or ship arriving. They saw nothing and were about to yell if she was playing a joke when she merely pointed up. A humming noise could be heard from the skies, so they looked up and jaws dropped everywhere. A large airship was descending from the heavens themselves right in front of them. As the airship landed at the sea in front of them, a platform popped out from the ship to allow them in. A man with yellow hair and a stubble came out of the ship. He had goggles and a spear in his hand, and his whole aura spoke volumes of him. Here was a man who had been into many wars and fought in them. Everyone became slightly scared of the West at this airship. It was common tactics that if you had the higher ground, you had the advantages. Here, the West could always have the higher ground now. Alright punks, my name's Sid. This beauty's here name is Highwind, and I'll be your captain today, the man introduced himself. I've got a few rules to go over with you, and I don't want to be your babysitter for too long. 1. Don't fight in my ship. 2. Don't annoy me. 3. Don't mess with my crew. 4. Don't go into areas you're not allowed to. I have guards there and notification seals, so don't think I won't know. And the 5th and important rule, don't annoy me. Anyone who doesn't follow these rules while in my ship gets booted off immediately. You mean kicked off after we land? Asked Karui, so we would need to find some other way back home. No, I mean booted off my ship literally, while the ship is still flying, clarified Sid. It's gonna be about 10 kilometers from the airship to the land, so I hope you guys know how to fly if you don't follow my rules. Everyone paled at this. Nobody wanted to fall off from that high of a distance, even if there was water below them. I think it might be best if we don't try to spy on the ship for now, whispered the black Zetsu to the white Zetsu, who nodded. Soon, everyone got on board the ship to what seemed to be a storage room. They were amazed that there was enough room for all of them. Omoi was worried that the ship was a trap, or that they would all fall while falling, and continuing off his list of extreme worries. Sid got very annoyed at him, and duct-taped his mouth shut, deciding it wasn't worth kicking someone off, yet. The Kumo group actually thanked him for doing them a service. Soon, the airship's engine started, and everyone could see and hear the blades on the ship to rotate, making a chopping noise before it became a hum. The platform was closed, and the airship lifted off back into the air. Everyone was nervous and amazed at this. Then 20 minutes after launch, a melodious ringtone could be heard, followed by a voice. "Attention everyone. This is Shira, your vice captain of the ship. You are now free to move around the ship. If you take the stairs up, you'll be able to enjoy the view from above. Please do note that any room that says staff only, do not attempt to enter. If you do not, then you'll be booted off the ship, and I'll be the one who gets to enjoy kicking you off." "Even got a plank for you to walk off before I kick you in the ass," interrupted Sid. "Like he said, you will be forced off the ship in an unpleasant manner. Please do enjoy the view, though," continued Shira, "that is all." Another ring tone followed it, signifying the announcement was over. Everyone looked at each other before scrambling up the stairs to get a view from above. Even if most of them were trained assassins, they couldn't help but want to enjoy a view from above. To be able to fly was many people's dream. Sasuke merely brooded in the storage room, among with a few others. Tsunade enjoyed the view, but her first priority was to find Jiraiya. After searching high and low, she finally found him talking to Mei. Her hands shaking, she quickly walked over to him. She could see that the woman was flirting heavily with him, and didn't to lose her chance. She grabbed Jiraiya and stormed away with him, apologizing and being dragged. Mei pouted at the loss of her chance. "Don't worry, milady," said Ao. "That single moment won't happen again. I'll be sure to always delay anyone who interrupts your conversation. The moment won't happen, always, delayed, single," thought the Mizukage. It interpreted to, "That moment where you won't be single will always be delayed." "Shut up, Ao, or I'll kill you," said Mei, causing Ao to cry. Jiraiya finally got tired of being dragged and healed, stopping Tsunade in her path. "Tsunade Haim, what's wrong?" he asked. He didn't get an answer because Tsunade whirled around and kissed him, hard. Jiraiya was surprised at this sudden movement but didn't complain. Instead, he kissed back, pushing her into a wall. They stopped when they needed to go up for some air. "I missed you," muttered Tsunade. "Don't get used to this, though. I have an image to maintain, still. I wouldn't have it any other way," replied Jiraiya. They would have kissed again, and perhaps find a room to explore further when a commotion took their attention. They looked to see an Iwa ninja harassing one of the crew members, trying to get into a restricted zone. Many of the shinobis looked with interest to see how this would be handled. Then, a slim woman with brown hair and glasses came by. "Please sir, do not try to cause any more trouble and we will overlook this incident," said the woman. "Ha, you think you can order me, an Iwa Junin, around? Go back to whoring yourself, slut," said the Iwa nin, not knowing he had just sealed his doom. A spear came flying right into his shoulder, lifting him off the ground and making him fly about 10 feet before being pinned onto the wall. Everyone looked to see Sid had thrown it, and he looked very pissed. Nobody dared to block his way, and a direct path was formed from him to the idiotic ninja. Sid yanked the spear out and dragged the Iwa nin with him. Everyone followed him, interested to see what would happen. "Get the plank out. I get to use it again," stated Sid. The crew members happily agreed, and soon a door was opened with a plank sticking out. Sid forced the shinobi onto the platform. The shinobi did his best to not fall off by putting chakra on his feet and sticking onto the plank. "All right, you've broken all 6 of my rules," announced Sid. Everyone looked confused. He only said 5 and repeated one of them for emphasis. What's the 6th rule?" asked a random Kumo nin. "Don't insult my wife Shira," replied Sid, causing the Iwa nin to freeze. He knew he was screwed, but he wasn't going to go down without a fight. Before he could do anything, Sid said, "Say this is madness if you want to live for 4 more seconds." Confused, the Iwa nin said, "This is madness," not knowing he was just creating his own death scene. "This is high wind," shouted Sid as he recreated the kick he saw from a movie about Spartans. Obviously, he didn't use the same line, but he didn't have any good ones, so he thought his ship's name was appropriate. The Sparta kick sent the Iwa nin over the edge and tumbling down off the ship. Everyone looked in horror to see Sid wasn't joking about his threat as the poor Iwanin disappeared from sight. "He's not gonna live through that," said a crew member. "That's the fourth one this month, right?" asked another crew member. "Pay up, I win." It was interesting to see that the crew members were already used to their captain's antics. "Least he didn't make a mess last time some idiot insulted his wife," said the third crew member. Everyone decided it might be safer if they didn't go near any of the crew members. "Sid always backs his threats," chuckled Jiraiya. "You've been to the West before?" asked Tsunade sharply. "Of course," he chuckled. "They have very good connections with Koyuki-sama. It's a shame that wasn't Sasuke. Would have made life so much better." Tsunade had to agree on that. After 2 hours of flying, the same melodious tone rang out again, signifying another announcement. "Attention! This is Shira, your vice captain speaking. We will be arriving at the Imperial City within 15 minutes. Please remember to bring all your items with you when you get off the Highwind. We will not be responsible for any lost items. If you look through the windows now, you should be able to see the Imperial City coming into view." Everyone scrambled to see the city. Soon, the clouds parted, and everyone could see the city in its glory. It was huge, much bigger than Konoha or any of the shinobi villages. So many buildings and streets, and there were towers all over. And yet, its busy streets were well organized and beautiful. The scenery was breathtaking. At the center of the city was the Imperial Palace in all its glory. On the far right, they could see a huge Colosseum, where they would fight. The Easterners couldn't wait to test their skills against the West, hoping to show them what it meant to use chakra. It would be a painful lesson for those who were not ready. The Highwind docked into a building before letting its passengers out. Everyone spilled out to see the wonders of the West, and some of them had plans to liberate their technology. Before they could walk out the building, they were stopped by a group of people, wearing blue uniforms. 3 men stepped out in front of them. The mere look of them sent warning signs to all the Easterners. Especially the long white-haired man with a sword that looked it was 6 feet long. Mifune felt his blood boiling in anticipation to fight such a worthy adversary, though. "Welcome to the Imperial City of the West. My name's Zack," introduced the male with long spiky black hair with an obvious widow's peak. "Blonde's name here is Cloud, and the white one is Sephiroth. We're the leaders of the police group called Soldier. Got a few rules to go over before you go explore our city." After explaining the rules, Cloud stepped forward. "First, let's head to your assigned quarters. Each village will get 1 large house each. Divide the rooms, however, you want. You cause trouble, we come in and kick you out, end of story." The houses are all in one section of the neighborhood, but far enough from each other to maintain privacy. As for the tournament, it's in the Colosseum. You'd have to be stupid or really bad with directions to miss it. "Somewhere else," Zoro sneezed. "Be warned, we have no tolerance for those who break our rules," said Zack. "Break them, and we sick Sephiroth on you. And it won't be pretty." As to make a statement, Sephiroth drew his sword and cut a box in half, 12 feet away from him. Most didn't even see him swing. "Here comes the 2 groups," said Cloud dully. A group of people could be seen coming in. As they got closer, Kumo, Kiri, and Iwa gasped as they recognized some of them. "Kuretsuchi," gasped Akatsuchi, "you're alive." "How?" The Tsutomu looked annoyed and afraid. "Tsutomu tried to have me killed to get the cage's position," she spat out. Akatsuchi looked at Tsutomu with murderous rage. "I only escaped with my life thanks to the Emperor." "Yugito-chan," said Killer B. Before he could move to hug her, he was knocked away by Samui. "Oni-sama," Samui cried for once. Although they were not related by blood, Samui looked up to Yugito and was devastated when she had suddenly disappeared. There were rumors that Akatsuki had taken her and killed her, but nothing could be confirmed. "Hey, it's that cat bitch that we were hired to kill," yelled out Hidan. All of Kumo turned to Hidan, glaring at him. Now they knew who was responsible for hunting her. "Great job on keeping your mouth shut, idiot," muttered Kakuza. "Now they know. Who hired you?" thundered A. He was not pleased that someone put a hit on his ninja, especially someone who he saw as family. "I can tell you that," said Yugito. "It was some of the civilian council. They didn't exactly like me, and paid Akatsuki to have me killed." The poor civilian councils had to endure trying to kill them. Luckily, Yugito managed to calm him down and tell him which ones they were. It was luck that the ones that had traveled with them had no idea about it. "Utakata, how'd you end up in the West?" asked May. "Was ambushed by some orange-haired people with weird abilities. If it wasn't for some mysterious assistance, I would have been captured," replied Utakata. 2 more people stood at the side, waiting for the greetings to be over. Soon, everyone was being led to the place where they would be sleeping. The houses were big to accompany each village and had enough beds. As the guides were leaving, one man wearing a cloak with blonde hair looked towards at Konoha, gazing at Sasuke especially. This irritated him, and so he decided to respond. "What do you want, commoner?" Sasuke sneered. The man just raised an eyebrow and chuckled, just looking at the man who tried to steal Kenichi's fiancé. "That man doesn't deserve such a woman. She should be with me, an elite," said Sasuke. At the mention of this, the last person just chuckled. He had long red with a tint of pink hair and green eyes, with delicate features. Atsui went up to that person, trying to flirt. "Wanna guide me around? You look hot," said Atsui. Yugito facepalmed, knowing what was going to happen. "Thank you, but you do know I am male, right?" he said. Atsui's face cracked, along with quite a few shinobis who wanted to ask him out, thinking he was a girl. Sai turned to Sakura. "Look, even a male beats you in beauty, ugly. Perhaps you should go ask for some advice, although it doubts it'll help, ugly banshee." Sakura screeched and wailed on him. "Ah, apologies, I haven't introduced myself. My name is Shuichi, but I also go by Kurama. The man in the cloak is Tanimoto, but he prefers to go by Hermit. Feel free to relax around for a while. Dinner will be soon, and some of our cooks have volunteered to allow you dine on our varieties of cuisine here." At this, everyone's stomach growled. Choji's was the loudest out of all of them. They had been so nervous and excited to coming to the West that they forgot about eating. Kurama chuckled. "Dinner will be ready in an hour. We'll come to guide you to where you will be eating." After everyone went into their houses and got comfortable, they all quickly met up in the middle, where the guides were waiting. Soon, they were walking towards another building. While walking, a few shinobis tried to sneak away, including Zetsu. "I wouldn't separate from the group if I was you," warned Kurama without even turning around, causing them to freeze in their steps. "We have eyes on you, and the moment you try to break those rules, your life is forfeit." One Odo shinobi ignored the warning and tried to run into one of the forbidden zones they had been warned not to go. Before she even got 10 meters away, a blur came by. The shinobi ran for 5 more meters before being chopped up into 15 body parts. Everyone looked to see a short man with a ridiculous spiky black hair, black clothes, and a white headband with a bloody sword had arrived. "Hiei, was it really needed to slice the poor woman that many times?" asked Kurama. "Meh, I sliced her once for every meter she took. It was fitting enough," shrugged Hiei. Many of the Eastern shinobi started to have their confidence in winning the tournament wane. They had been showed repeatedly that the Western warriors could beat them without a sweat. Soon enough, they reached the dining hall. Everyone sat within their own villages, although Samui would not separate from Yugito easily, so she decided to sit with Kumo. "You're lucky tonight," said Kuretsuchi. "The person cooking today for you is considered one of the best cooks. He's gone to so many places and learned a variety of cuisines. The only problem is that the person is a major flirt with females." Soon the door opened, and a blonde male in a suit with curly eyebrows stepped out. "Greetings. My name is Sanji, and I'll be your head chef for the day," he said politely, scanning the crowd. He seemed to be a perfect gentleman until his eyes landed on May 1st. He rushed over to her, kneeling with hearts for eyes. "Such beauty. Milady, you look so ravishing. With that mysterious aura and dazzling beauty, everything's getting so misty. Would you be interested in having dinner with me?" May actually seemed embarrassed for once. She had complained about not finding a good man, and yet this person was laying heaps of compliments on her and trying to ask her out. Before she could even answer, a frying pan flew from the kitchen and hit him on the head. "Sensei, don't leave us when we're busy," shouted a red-haired man with a long white headband. Sanji's response while lying on the ground from the pan was just muttering, "Melorine, quite a bit. Sorry about that, Soma-kun, said Kuruma as he pulled Sanji back to the kitchen. Looking inside, they saw chefs, all ready to cook. Yukihira, I'll cook more than you and beat you, said a blonde-haired man. Bring it on, Takumi, replied Soma. HMPH, I'll beat you all with my god's tongue, replied a blonde beauty. Arena, don't make me humble you again with my skills, said Soma, causing the blonde to blush. Shut up, that has nothing to do with cooking, yelled Arena. Now, let's calm down now, said an Asian-looking man. His name tag read Komatsu. Before long, the food was being cooked with such speed and precision. The appetizers came first. At first, most of them were wary of what they were eating, for it didn't look familiar to them. The first bite changed that. Soon, they couldn't get enough. Delicious-looking dishes kept being served at such a high pace, and it was eaten. One fool from Kiri scoffed. Sure, it was delicious, but he didn't like how the head chef flirted with May. He decided to try to make a fool out of him. Oi, head chef, he called out. Sanji came up to him. You call this shit food? Everyone stopped to look at the commotion. Nobody agreed that the food was shit, and couldn't understand why he was doing this. What is this insect? The shinobi said loudly while pointing in his soup, trying his best to humiliate Sanji. Inside the soup was some sort of fly that the shinobi had grabbed from the floor and put it in. Sorry sir, can't tell you. I'm not an expert on insects, replied Sanji. Everyone tried to muffle their laughter at this comeback. The Kiri shinobi was slowly turning red at this humiliation before throwing his dish at Sanji. It missed and hit the fall, shattering it. Who do you think you are? You're just a lowly cook. He growled. Mei and Ao frowned at their own shinobi's behavior and was about to reprimand him when Sanji replied first. You could have just taken the fly out of the soup, it was still edible. No need to waste food, replied Sanji, shadows covering his eyes. Shut up and die, roared the shinobi, throwing a punch at him. Before anyone could even stop the man, they witnessed another scene that would shock them. After 20 seconds later, the Kiri shinobi was doused in his own blood, his face beaten to a pulp. He was being held directly up by one of Sanji's leg. What amazed them was that the cook was only using kicks to beat the shit out of the ninja. PFF'd, is that it? Sanji asked while grabbing a cigarette from his pocket. He tossed the man aside and turned around to the kitchen. The shinobi was barely conscious but still, wouldn't give up. He ran towards Sanji with craziness in his eyes, intent on stabbing him with a kunai. Sanji suddenly disappeared from the man's view, confusing him. Then, from the side, he heard Sanji mutter, "Anti-manner kick course." Before he could respond, the shinobi felt an extremely powerful kick up his spine. He was in so much pain that he didn't notice that his body hit the ceiling, and proceeded to go through it. Guess he didn't need desert, said Sanji calmly, lighting up his cigarette. Soma peeked into the kitchen to see what happened. Guys, head chef Sanji just knocked someone out of the mess hall again, said Soma. Which kick was it this time? Asked Komatsu. Judging by the fact the hole is at the ceiling this time, probably the anti-manner kick course one. Idiot probably insulted him and wasted food in front of him, said Takumi. The Easterners were starting to get really nervous. Only one day at the West and already they were being completely shown up. Even their cook could beat a shinobi for crying out loud. Soon, desert came. As the shinobis and samurais were slowly finishing up their dishes, Sanji came out again, flirting with any woman he saw. To nobody's surprise, he skipped Sakura, causing her to screech again. Luckily, Shikamaru thought it was too troublesome and used his shadow possession jutsu on her and knocked her out onto the wall. Sanji-kun, could I get a refill on this for me and my little sister Samui? Said Yugito. Hi Yugito Chwann. Samyi Swan, as he spun away to get a refill. He's weird, sweat dropped Samui. That he is, but he still makes excellent food. Even though he flirts a lot, he's still quite the gentleman, replied Yugito. Mei's eyes were still a bit glazed after being complimented by Sanji. A man who could cook, be sweet, and even fight. His flirting could use some work, but he was still one of the best men she's ever come across. The West has some fine men, said Mei as she licked her lips. Her party started to scoot away, knowing she was on the prowl tonight for men. Dinner was done, and the shinobis and samurais were about to leave when one of them asked what was going to happen to the Kiri ninja. "Ah, almost forgot about him," said Sanji. "I've already phoned the hospital that there's someone who insulted and wasted food again," said Irina as she stepped out with Soma in her arm. "Thanks, Irina-san," waved Sanji, surprising the Easterners. They were sure he would be hitting on her, as Irina was also quite a beautiful lady. The pervert only hits on single women. He gets frustrated when ladies are in a relationship, but knows to respect it, said Hiei as he walked to the door with Hermit and opened the door wide. Sanji had walked back to his position where he launched the Kiri Nin. He took quite a few steps back before doing a few flips forwards. On his final flip, he launched a single kick while yelling, "Muton shot." Right on cue, the Kiri Nin fell from the sky and directly into Sanji's kick. He flew right out the door, sailing into the distance. "Alright, he'll be at the hospital. You guys can get him back after he's done being treated by tomorrow," said Kurama. Back at the Imperial Palace. "Two shinobis dead and one in the hospital, and that's just the first day," muttered Naruto as he was looking over some paperwork. Neji and Maru had come to visit and help out. "I'm surprised the Uchiha hasn't done something stupid yet," said Maru. "Don't worry, come tournament, he'll be humiliated," said Neji. Ryazanpaku aren't exactly pleased that their little girl was leered at. "Speaking of which, did they agree to it?" "Yay," said Naruto. "This tournament's gonna be interesting." The Eastern people were led back to their respective houses, allowing them to sleep. All of them were having doubts about winning the tournament now. Everyone except a few select people, like Sasuke and Hideki. Sasuke believed that everything belonged to him, while Hideki just thought fate would give him victory. Both had quite the log stuck in their asses. Morning came over, and the Easterners were getting up. Some of them were headed to the training fields that had been shown earlier by the guides. Afternoon rolled by, and the guides came back. "We've been ordered to offer you a tour to our hospital and to our combat school relating to our village. You'll be able to see what makes our village special," said Kurama. "However, you can only choose one, for we leave at the same time." The groups were quickly split, the medical teams interested in the hospital while the combat-orientated ones went for the schools. "Alright, I will be leading the tour around the hospital. The tour guide for the school will come shortly," said Kurama. Soon, everyone saw a woman with scarlet hair coming close. She wore body armor and a skirt, making some confused at her fashion. What drew many of them in, though, was the spiral on her breastplate, the same insignia that was on Konoha's flak jacket on their back. "No way, impossible, we killed them all in the Second War." The woman stopped in front of them and bowed. "Greeting, my name is Urza, Uzumaki Urza of the Uzumaki clan," she said smoothly. You Uzumaki, you said?" Tsunade asked. "Yes. During the Second Shinobi War, when Kiri, Kumo, and Iwa allied themselves together with some minor villages to destroy our village, a group of us escaped to the west. Most of our warriors died, but not without taking out almost all of our opponents. In fact, it is Konoha who owes us debts from helping create their village to many others, one which they seem to not be interested in repaying based on our observation of a certain Uzumaki." Urza scowled. Some of the Konoha ninjas looked away in shame, while others didn't. "HMPH, if you talking about the Dobi, then don't bother. He was trash, and belonged to the bottom of my souls to lick my feet," bragged Sasuke. He suddenly noticed a sword right at his neck from Urza. When did she even move and get a sword? She was unarmed, thought many of the shinobis. One thing, Uchiha scum, is that Uzumaki takes family seriously. A crime against one is a crime against all. Urza scowled, very tempted to slice his throat. "Calm down, Urza, he hasn't done anything to warrant such treatment in the Empire yet," said Kurama. "We're supposed to be tour guides." Urza scowled but obeyed. She cut him at the cheeks before turning away. She leads the school tour away while Kurama took his. With the hospital tour, Tsunade and many leading shinobi healers were interested in what sort of healing the West had. They arrived at the head hospital. "Here, we have a seal provided by the Uzumaki clan, the Talisman of Life. This seal helps delay any sickness and infection from wounds while providing greater regeneration among the patients, explained Kurama. Just with that sentence, they were all drooling at that seal. Do you have them only in this hospital? Asked Ino. Oh no, it's in every hospital, replied Kurama, making their jaws drop. This alone already put the West at a superior advantage in the medical field. Kurama continued to guide them through. The introduction of morphine had Tsunade wanting it. To be able to conduct surgery without the patient feeling pain would be so useful, as they wouldn't flinch anymore. Soon, a Konoha nin that was in the civilian council's pocket couldn't take it anymore. In the name of Konoha, I demand you release all your knowledge to allow Konoha to become stronger. Everyone looked at the shinobi with incredulous looks. Tsunade was incredibly pissed that someone had the balls to undermine her authority. Shinobi, watch your mouth. As the Hokage of the Leaf Village, I order you to retract that statement and apologize or face termination of your status at once. The shinobi held his chin up, looking down at Tsunade. Being the council's shinobi had bought him many benefits as well as untold arrogance. He easily imagined that Tsunade's decision would be overturned and the council would praise him for bringing in riches from the West. Does that mean that this shinobi is no longer a Konoha nin? Asked Kurama. Tsunade saw that the shinobi was not obeying and nodded. He lifted his hair and took out a rose that he somehow hid in his hair. Ha, what are you gonna do? Offer me a rose and hope it pricks me? Laughed the ex-Konoha nin. Something along those lines, replied Kurama. He raised his hand up with the rose before slashing it down. Suddenly, the rose became a thorny whip, wrapping around the shinobi and indeed prickling him at many spots. Mokuten, thought Tsunade. No, doesn't feel like it. Hee, I was just joking. Please let go of me, the man begged as he tried to use his kunai to cut the whip just to find it ineffective. You'll find that my whip can easily cut through steel. As for your request, I'm afraid I will have to deny it, Kurama said harshly before pulling his whip. The man was instantly sliced into pieces. Are there any more interruptions before we go on? Kurama asked as if nothing had happened. Nobody dared to say anything. At the combat school, Urza had led the other group to their combat school, where they saw many children of different age group practicing katas, following what seemed to be a man with a long braided ponytail called Q. Look up Qing dynasty hairstyle. It would seem normal except all the students seemed to be extremely focused and followed the katas all in sync without making any obvious mistakes. The teacher himself was flawless, and everyone could feel that this man was a master of fighting. After the students were done, the teacher walked up to them. Greetings Master Wang Fei Hung. These are the foreigners from the east, visiting our city until the tournament, said Urza as she bowed to him in respect. He bowed back before greeting the group. Welcome to Po Kai Lam Academy. I am the headmaster of this place. They were quite surprised that a headmaster of all people would be the one teaching. Our academy, as you can see, is not done by age group, but rather skill sets and maturity. Each year, it is our job to assess the students to see if they should proceed to the next level or stay. The starting age is 7, and we allow any who wish to join. Of course, if a student doesn't do well enough, then we kindly discuss other career choices. The academy teaches up to 3 academic years of all the basics, including the usual academic skills, but also help build a strong body and mind. We also enforce the idea of teamwork, so instead of having graduated shinobis doing what you rank as D-rank missions, we have our students do it. A group of 3 students will take it, and it is randomized who goes with who. After all, one must learn to adapt and meet new people. When a student graduates the academy, they may select which field they wish to go to. Most of the fields have continuing education academies, like Soldier Camp, Shinobi Academy, while others are apprenticed by masters. Quote, some of them were impressed with this system and were debating on trying to copy it. Akumo Shinobi, however, felt a strong nationalism towards his village and felt theirs was much stronger. He observed the headmaster and felt like he could defeat him easily. If he defeated him, he could prove to everyone that Kumo was the best. Excuse me, headmaster, I would like to spar with you to see whose is better, said the Kumo shinobi. What did you say? We're giving you a tour guide and you want to ruin it just because of your pride. Prepare to be punished, snarled Urza, Her body suddenly glowed and her armor disappeared into dazzling lights. Most of the tour group thought she was merely stripping when she was suddenly wearing a completely different armor. Heaven's Wheel armor, she declared. Suddenly, swords came out of nowhere and floated around her. She was set to attack the impudent fool when the headmaster raised his hand. "It's all right, I don't mind." "But," cried Urza. "I was going to Ryazanpaku to spar anyways. Might as well do it here," he stated. The crowd moved, allowing a circle to form between the Kumo Nin and the headmaster. Urza decided to referee. She stated the usual spar rules, taijutsu only. As she threw her hand down, the shinobi ran forward, intent on ending this. That was his last thought before he was knocked unconscious. It seemed to happen in slow-mo for the viewers. The shinobi had been running into the headmaster at what seemed to be his top speed. Wang Fei Hung shifted his body so his right leg was facing his enemy. All of a sudden, a barrage of kicks from his right legs shot out, hitting the shinobi all over his body. He ended it by jumping into the air and back-kicking the shinobi with his left. The Kumo Nin was in a daze before he fell unconscious. The tour group felt a chill up their spines. Those kicks were so fast that they swore there had been no shadows when he kicked. Urza ignored the man in pain and continued with the tour. After everyone had gotten back from the tours, each village went into their respective dorms to share what they had learned. It wasn't pretty, for it seemed that the Imperial West was ahead of them in education styles, medicine, and technology. Their only hope was to try to form an alliance with the West and hope that they would be willing to share their resources. Tsunade herself was hoping to see Naruto again. The day was finally here. Fireworks were shot into the sky, signifying the start of the tournament. Usually, the tournaments only lasted about 5 days, but since more people had been invited, everyone was extremely excited. The Colosseum was filled with citizens and people from all over the West. While the Easterners had a place that was occupied for themselves, the cages that were not participating in the current tournament were invited to sit with Koyuki, who had a personal spot with Kakashi and Jiraiya near a seemingly empty box. Tsunade, Gaara, and Mei accepted while Orochimaru and Tsutomu declined. In the middle of the Colosseum was a huge patch of land. It was even bigger than Konoha's stadium by 4 times. Standing in the middle was a woman wearing cute clothes and had fox ears and tails. "Is that a fox girl?" asked Mei. One of the guards in the room nodded. "You guys accept demons?" asked A. "We don't discriminate against them. They have a right to live just as we do. After all, you all had no problems with," said a guard. This surprised them all, as they didn't even notice that he was one. Before they could say anything, the guard raised his hand to forestall any conversation and pointed to the middle, showing that it was starting. "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kodo, and I'll be the announcer for the next few days. As you may have all noticed, this year's tournament format is different. Instead of our brave fighters bashing each other's guts out, we've invited people from over the wall to also bash their brains out. This year, our empire had their preliminaries and selected 6 participants to be on this stage. But first, allow me to introduce you to our referees. They're one of the strongest group within the empire. Nobody fights them without getting hurt. Their #1 disciple is even a participant in this tournament. Please welcome, Ryazanpaku." The Easterners looked towards the floor entrances, hoping to see them. All of a sudden, there was a huge impact in the middle of the ground. The Easterner were shocked at this sudden entrance and demanded to know where they came from since they didn't even sense them near the entrances. Their shock magnified when they learned that the members had literally jumped into the Colosseum from above. The dust cloud cleared and showed 7 figures, all posing and wearing Power Ranger masks. 5 of them seemed excited, 1 showed little emotion, and the last one seemed a bit embarrassed. Ryozan Blue, Shio Sakari, Ryozan White, Akisame Ketsuji, Ryozan Green, Kensai Ma, Ryozan Apapa, Apachai Hopachai. Apachai, you're supposed to say yellow. Whispered Green. "Ah, sorry, Ryozan Yellow, Ryo. Zan, Pink, Shiger Kasaka. Ryozan Black, Saiga Furinji." He was slightly embarrassed on doing this while everyone was watching. "Together, we are the Ryozanpakutokusentai. And our leader is Garyu X Hayato Furinji." The man was huge and muscular. I felt slightly threatened by some of the members. He was the one who was supposed to be the manliest and have the biggest muscles, and now, there were several whose muscles seemed comparable. Everyone applauded Ryazanpaku's entrance since they were famous for their martial arts. 2 more referees were invited, one being Wang Fei Hung and the other was a surprise to the visitors. Again with red hair, this person seemed to be dressed similarly to a jester. He had a drawing of a teardrop on one cheek and a star on the other cheek. And for our last referee, may I introduce you to one of the elders of the Uzumaki clan, Uzumaki Hisoka aka the Magician. How many Uzumaki escaped our damn invasion? We lost almost all of our forces to try to wipe them out. Thought Tsutomu and many of his shinobis. Now that we've introduced our referees, will all competitors come down to the middle so everyone can see you while at the same time we can give you your instructions, announced Kodo. Soon, all the competitors were on the field. Some were nervous, others were relaxed. Sasuke looked smug, thinking he would easily win this tournament and show them what it means to be an elite, while Sakura was cheering him on. Since Sakura never got rid of her fangirl habit, she never received training from Tsunade nor did she do anything to get much stronger. She was still in the phase where she thought that sweat was disgusting and that she shouldn't eat much. Ino was lucky to become Tsunade's apprentice after her fan streak was brutally beaten out of her by her friends and family. As all the contestants for the taijutsu, several television screens flashed on and displayed each contestant's name, picture, and village, allowing the audience to see. The Easterners finally saw who was representing the West. Shirahama Kenichi, Ryu Hoshi, Tifa Lockhart, Monkey D, Luffy, Neji Hyuga. Wait, what? The Konoha Nins all did a double take on the last name that was representing the West. He had disappeared around the same time Naruto had been banished, but they didn't think he was actually here. They all quickly scanned the crowd and saw Neji talking with Kenichi. He had grown much taller since they last saw him. He wore a white long-sleeved shirt and white pants while having a blue bandana on his forehead, similar to Naruto Shippuden Neji, just with a blue bandana. Closing parenthesis. Hiyashi merely grinned, happy that his nephew was still alive. If he was alive, then the chances that the rest of his family was alive was very high. Hideki, though, sneered. Here was the runaway branch Hyuga that needed to be punished. He wanted to just activate the seal but decided that it would be unwise to do so now. That improper humiliation was needed to put the branch member in place. Alright, everyone's here now. Time to see who will fight who. Keep in mind this is actually a 2-day tournament. What's going to happen is that we're going to have multiple fights at once, said Kodo. Right on cue, the floor rumbled, and 9 platforms rose from the ground. Each platform was a standard flat surface arena found in tournaments, and was large enough to have one-on-one fights and had enough space to run around. Think of the DBZ World Tournament arenas. To make this tournament faster so the audience doesn't have to snooze, we're going to have 9 referees all working at each arena. 36 competitors. That means 18 matches will happen for sure today. Right after that, we'll take a 30-minute break to allow the fighters to heal up from our medical staff and jump right into the second round. Once the second round is over, the fighters who have fought their way up through these rounds will draw numbers that will qualify them into the second part of the tournament held on the next day, announced Kodo. Before we begin, let us greet our emperor and his beloved consort, who allowed this day to happen. She pointed at the empty box that was near the cages. It was empty when she pointed to the box, and in the next second, a yellow flash appeared. At this flash, the Iowa Nins froze as they had flashbacks of a certain Namikaze who did the same thing. The emperor was dressed in golden yellow robes with a dragon insignia on it and a black mantle. He wore a hat similar to what the cages usually wore, and had a face mask that covered the bottom half of his face. His blue eyes could still be seen, however. His consort wore a white silk kimono that accentuated her figure. She had a fan up, covering her face and had sunglasses so nobody could see her eyes. That's the man who interrupted our attacks on the Jinchurikis, growled Kakuza. They had no idea that he was the emperor at that time, merely a huge pest that was disrupting their leader's plan. So that's the emperor. Now to try to convince him to ally with me and position myself where I can take over his body, mused Orochimaru. Is this man a descendant of that accursed Namikaze? We must eliminate him when we get the chance, growled Sumoto softly. Gaara recognized him as the man who had saved him from Akatsuki's attack on the village once and decided to try to form an alliance with him. He had two major reasons. One was as thanks for saving him and the other was the desperate attempt to find Naruto. If Neji was here, then maybe Naruto was here too. Mei merely licked her lips at another man that seemed worthy. If only he was single. Oh well, getting an alliance, military or not, would be beneficial for them anyways. I was considering the same thing as Mei for an alliance. Tsunade knew she only had one shot to have the West ally with Konoha. If she missed her chance, Konoha was doomed. However, something about the Emperor's eyes seemed familiar. The Emperor waved his hand, and everyone in the audience cheered, showing how much devotion they had for him. Alright folks, now the Emperor's here, let's get this fight on the road. Fighters, please go to your assigned arena as shown on the board. Those who are not fighting in this first half, please wait in the sidelines, said Koto. Soon, 9 matches were ready to go. Naruto noticed that Kenichi had been placed against Arena 5 while Neji in Arena 9. He decided to focus on those fights. Alright, the fighters have made it to the arenas, now will the judges go to an arena to judge? Judges, what's wrong? Why are you huddled up like that, Ryazanpaku? Asked Koto. Sorry, debating on who gets the right to judge Arena 5, called out Sakari. He no longer had his mask on, as the rest of them. Only the elder Furinji seemed to be stubborn on wearing his. I should get the right, he tried to take my daughter by force. Said Saiga. Miu is my granddaughter, that makes me the one that should have the right, said the elder. Apapapa, I'll judge there and lightly beat him up to death if he does something wrong, said Apachai. Miu is a girl. I should get the right to judge, said Shiger. Now calm down, said Akisame. 2 of you are going to have in-laws with one of the competitors, so you two shouldn't be the referee due to possible bias. Apachai, you don't know how to hold back. Shiger, you might distract them. Sakari gets drunk too often, and Kensai wants to judge Tifa-san. So the most reasonable referee should be me. Shut up, Akisame. You just want to be the referee for the same reason as all of us. That punk tried to steal Miu, someone we all see as a daughter, said Sakari. There's only one way to see who gets to judge, huh? Plus, I want to be the one to judge on that arena too. Like Sakari said, Miu's one of us, said Kensai. Everyone nodded. The Easterners held their breath, trying to see what they would do, only to faceplant into the ground. Ryazanpaku had just announced they would play rock paper scissors. Are they idiots? Said Kiba. Shino just coughed lightly. However, what came next put them to shame and extreme shock at how extreme their version was. Jan Ken, said all of Ryazanpaku. Their hands were in the air at this point. Poon. As they threw their hands down, their hands were changing from the 3 choices at lightning speed. Their eyes were shining fiercely like laser eyes while throwing their choices. In terms of hand speed, the shinobis couldn't make that many hand seals compared to them. What? Even at my highest speed I can't make that many changes in my choices when I play rock paper scissors, thought A. At the end of the pawn, a dust blew out from the source. Hee, I tried to take advantage of reading you when you were reading me when I was reading you all, said Sakari. In the end, only Apachai threw out without thinking, said Kenzie. Everyone had chosen rock while Apachai played paper, or so they thought. Nope, I chose paper too, said the elder. Agreeing that the choice was up to those two, Apachai and the elder faced off. They looked each other in the eye, ready to debate who would be the referee, until the elder pulled out a bowl of jelly beans out of nowhere. Apachai, if you let me be the referee for Arena 5, I'll give you this bowl of candy. Okay, said Apachai. The rest of Ryazanpaku just made a tisk sound before they decided to randomly choose an arena. Alright contestants, remember, listen to your proctor. If your opponent forfeits, then you're not allowed to do anything else to them. If you get knocked out of the ring and touch the ground, you lose. This is a strictly taijutsu match, so no genjutsu or long-range ninjutsu. Chakra may be used if it is channeled through the hand-on contact, like Gentle Fist, or if chakra used as an internal booster. If you're not sure your close-range ninjutsu is allowed, just ask before you fight. Any dojutsu is allowed as a body enhancer, but no genjutsu through the eyes is allowed. Trust me, we'll know if you do. Let the fight begin. Arena 5. HMPH. I never thought I'd get the chance to finally show the bitch what a true elite is. After I defeat you, I'll take her as my prize, along with a few select women to repopulate my clan, like the girl Arena, taunted Sasuke. I'd never let you win. Plus, you'd have to try to convince her grandfather, and something tells me that'll be impossible, said Kenichi as he got into a fighting pose. HMPH, like I have to worry about some old man. I'm an elite. He should be begging me to take his daughter, said Sasuke. Now, the time for chatter is done, now is the time to fight, said the elder. It was amazing how much he was holding his temper back. If he had a chance, that brat Sasuke would be cosmic dust in less than a femtosecond. Sasuke merely scoffed as he activated his Sharingan and got into his interceptor fist, known to the Uchiha clan. There was nothing else superior. Ready boys, said the elder. Begin. Kenichi automatically dashed forward with extreme speed, surprising Sasuke. His Sharingan barely managed to read his path, and so he blocked the knee that was aimed at his body. HMPH, you have speed, but my eyes can see through you, trash. Albeit, Sasuke never got to finish as he felt Kenichi suddenly become stronger. Even when guarding, Kenichi broke through it with a huge vertical kick. Korui Nuki. This was one of Kenichi's strongest moves, taught by the elder himself. Sasuke found himself coughing up blood from that attack as he went flying off the arena. His ribs were pretty much broken. The winner for Arena 5 is Shirahama Kenichi. Nice job, by the way. Good to know my future grandson-in-law can protect my granddaughter, laughed the elder. I'll kill you, shouted Sasuke as he was about to blaze through some hand signs. Before he noticed, the elder had already moved in front of him. Stop it, you lost. Don't embarrass yourself, frowned the elder. Sasuke didn't seem to listen and was about to charge forward when he suddenly tripped. What the? Said Sasuke, dazed that he had suddenly tripped. Now, just slowly get up, said the elder. Sasuke tried to get up only to stumble again. And again. At the cage booth. What's happening down there? Why is he stumbling? Did he really take that much damage? Asked Tsunade. Koyuki chuckled before asking the guard to pull up a television set for them before explaining. The elder Furiniji is the strongest for a reason. The real reason Sasuke is tripping is because he's kicking him every time. What? Impossible. I'm one of the fastest in the East, and there's no way he's so fast that we can't even see him move. Said A. In that case let's watch a replay of the elder in front of Sasuke, said Koyuki. They saw the video played at 1/10 speed and still didn't notice anything until it was at 1/1000th speed. Then they saw his right leg move in a blur. They were aghast at the speed the elder was kicking. That's it. I'm getting an alliance with the West, screw other reasons. They are too strong to be enemies, thought all the cages that was sitting at the booth. It was unfortunate for Orochimaru and Sumoto that they didn't know the reason for Sasuke's lack of coordination, otherwise, they would be doing the same thing. Finally, Sasuke decided he had enough and walked off to the sideline, sulking. The elder merely chuckled before turning his attention to the other matches. Meanwhile, Naruto was holding Hinata's while chuckling with her. He should have expected the elder would do this since Sasuke did insult his own granddaughter. He took a look at Arena 9 to see Neji kicking Hideki's butt. At Arena 9, around same time Arena 5 started match. So, the runaway branch member is here at the West, huh? You should give up and come back with us to face judgment, said Hideki. Neji merely got into the gentle fist fighting pose. What's wrong? Afraid of talking? Taunted Hideki. Meanwhile, Hisoka just gave the signal to start. Hideki didn't even notice the signal before receiving 128 palm hits into his body. 8 trigrams, 128 palms. Neji calmly walked away after inflicting so much damage, and only turned around when Hideki stood up again. What? Why isn't the seal working? Hideki yelled, repeatedly trying to activate the seal as Neji started to get closer. Perhaps because I don't have the seal anymore, said Neji as he pulled off his headband, showing his bare forehead. At this sight, Hiashi felt hope. Here, in these lands, was the answer to remove that accursed seal and finally unite the family. Hideki felt different, though. Impossible. Still, you're still below me. Die. Hideki lunged at him, forgetting that all his tenketsus were still closed. Your loss, Kaden, said Neji, spinning to form a blue dome. Hideki crashed into it and flew off the arena. Luckily, Hisoka used his power to shoot a sticky gum onto Hideki before he could crash land onto the ground. Looks like the winner is Neji Hyuga for this round. This other one has no potential at all, commented Hisoka. Soon, the other matches were also done, and the other 18 contestants stepped onto the arenas. This time, Ryu was fighting Kumo Nin named C while Tifa was fighting Sakura. Naruto couldn't help but laugh at this. The bitch is going to get owned by Tifa. She stands no chance if our spy network is right, said Naruto. Kurama inside Naruto was laughing a storm while Hinata was also giggling while extremely happy that Sakura was finally going to pay for all that abuse she heaped on Naruto. She had heard Mew already attacked her, but she wanted a front row seat on it. Both of them agreed that Cloud needed to propose soon, although nobody was likely to steal her away, they were way too close for that, and Tifa wasn't exactly weak. Naruto looked to see the last representative of the West stretching a bit. Luffy was fighting some random Odo competitor. Naruto could already hear his wife Nami cheering him on as well as telling him to win the tournament. Naruto sighed. Luffy was probably one of the strongest fighters as well as head captain of his ship, but he could be easily controlled by Nami. It wasn't that Luffy wasn't able to fight against her, but rather didn't want to, and so usually obeyed her whims, which was mostly money. Of course, that didn't mean Luffy let her roll over him all the time. Any big decisions were usually made by him. Meanwhile, in the Imperial Palace entrance hall, the Zetsu had entered in the palace to see if they could find any information about the Emperor. Well, that wasn't hard to enter. Yeah, you're right, the Zetsus talked to each other. Before they even took a step, the shadows all around them moved at once. One by one, members of the Brotherhood stepped out of the shadows. You were warned the first time. It seems you didn't wish to listen to our instructions, so as punishment, you will die. Before the Zetsus could do anything, they found themselves hit by arrows, daggers and pierced by swords. The Zetsus tried to escape, only to find all escape paths blocked and sealed. How did you even notice us? Nobody can detect us that easily, said the Zetsu. The Brotherhood stepped back to allow to enter. I am very sensitive to plants, for they are my power. You were in my domain ever since you stepped in. All of a sudden, he started to transform. He grew white hair and fox ears on top of that. Yoko Kurama is my true name. You have trespassed even hearing my warnings. Your body will become nutrients for my plants. As this statement, vines started to grow towards the Zetsu from his arms. All they could do was watch and die. Back at the Colosseum, a fight, well, it really couldn't be described as a fight. More of a slaughterhouse for one the matches. Tifa was beating the shit out of Sakura. Tifa was disgusted when she had heard tales of Sakura's abuse and her attitude towards being a kunoichi. Poor taijutsu, fangirl, on a diet, all things that anyone of her job shouldn't be in. Of course, Sakura imagined herself to be powerful. How she even got to be a chunin was a miracle. Oh wait, her mom bribed people to get her in. Feeling disgusted, Tifa decided to impart a message to Sakura. One that involved breaking a lot of bones in her body. Let me punch you, you big-titted cow, said Sakura as she continued to miss. She was, of course, jealous of Tifa's beauty and body. Kensai, being the referee, was taking pictures of Tifa. He tried to convince her to wear a bikini while fighting, but that offer was rejected faster than Naruto getting ramen. No thanks, bitch, replied Tifa as she punched her in the ribs again, breaking the fourth one. This is getting boring, I'm ending this. She did a somersault kick to Sakura's chin, rattling her brain. She then rushed at her, just kept pounding on every part of her body until Kensai called for a stop. The match on Ryu vs C was pretty decent, though. C had a decent taijutsu level and played defensively, striking at critical moments. However, Ryu was used to counter styles and ended it with a Shinku Tatsumaki Senpukyaku. Luffy just one-hit co-ed his opponent with a right cross. Probably didn't help that his opponent insulted his hat and wife. A 30-minute break was held, and the medics came out to heal anyone that had been injured. Many of them were reluctant to approach Konoha, but the head medic Aerith decided to approach them. She was accompanied by Rinoa, Squall, and surprising them all, Kensai and Akisame as doctors as well. Luckily, nobody tried to do anything too stupid. Sasuke was still brooding to think about power, while Sakura was still unconscious. Kiba tried to flirt with Rinoa only to meet with a blade to his face and a warning. She giggled as she hugged her husband and tried to calm him down, while Kiba was trying his best to not piss himself. Soon, 30 minutes were up, and all competitors were fully healed, something that amazed them. To be able to heal so many at so little time, especially in wars, could easily turn over any tides. Orochimaru was already thinking of how to convince one to come with them and share this knowledge in his army. His best bet was to steal a body, but that might be a hard thing to do, especially with this security. He wondered where Zetsu was, though. He should have been back already. Naruto cleared his throat, gaining the attention of everyone. Thank you all for coming to this fine day. We have seen 36 competitors fight to represent their village. Only 18 has earned the right to proceed to the next round. Without further ado, let the next rounds begin. Everyone cheered for their beloved emperor. Nobody noticed that a shadow behind Naruto moved. An assassin from the Brotherhood stepped out and whispered something to him before disappearing again. "What was that about, my dear husband?" asked Hinata. "That was just a confirmation that someone tried to break into our home even after warning them. We'll be sending a warning to all of them after this day is over." The competitors went to their assigned arenas. Naruto decided to pay more attention to his fighters as usual and saw that Luffy was fighting Choji, Ryu was against Tifa, Neji versus Kiri Nin, and Kenichi fighting Sumsuna Nin. On Konoha, the only thing that interested him was the fight of Kiba versus Lee. Maybe the fight with Ryu and Tifa will open their eyes just how hopelessly outmatched they are. Naruto mentally chuckled as he decided to lean back and enjoy the show. Arena 2 Luffy vs Choji. Choji had won his previous match by surprising his enemy by expanding his arm and slamming his opponent away. He had a feeling it wouldn't be easy against one of the Western fighter. Luffy was merely stretching his legs for a bit. "Apapapa, you know the rules. Fight," said Apachai. Choji immediately used his technique to enlarge his fist and threw it at Luffy, who dodged it. "Shihihi, so you can expand your body parts too," laughed Luffy. Choji took a second to process this. "Wait, too." Luffy threw his fist out while his body was still 5 feet away. Choji was confused until a punch landed on his face. He staggered back from the hit. "What? How did you hit me from so far away?" said Choji. "Easy, I'm a rubber man," replied Luffy, stretching his cheeks all around, showing how rubbery he was. "Troublesome. Choji's in trouble," said Shikamaru. "How so? Choji might still have a chance to hurt him," said Ino. "Brute force won't hurt rubber. Perhaps a Hyuga may be able to handle him. Choji only knows brute force. It'll be hard for him to make Luffy give up. At best, he has to force him out of the ring," explained Shikamaru. Choji seemed to have heard Shikamaru, for he went with full body expansion technique and tried to use the human bullet tank. Luffy stood still before he put his thumb into his mouth. Most of the visitors from the east would have laughed at this if it wasn't for the fact that Luffy's arm suddenly grew as big as Choji's body. "Gomu Gomu no Giganto pistol," yelled Luffy as he threw his giant hand forward in a fist. It clashed with Choji's technique and forced Choji to fly out of the arena, letting Luffy win. "Shihihi, not bad," said Luffy, squatting at the edge of the arena. Choji was still trying to keep the world from spinning before asking, "What did you eat to get so strong?" "By always having the most important food every day," said Luffy solemnly, making Choji close in a bit. "Meat." Most of the other people who heard this face faulted, but Choji had stars for his eyes. Before long, they were talking about how much they could eat and would compete against each other in an eating contest. Arena 7. This was the most anticipated match in the preliminaries ever since their names showed up. Both fighters faced each other and bowed in respect before getting into a fighting pose. "Show me your strength," said Ryu. Let's get this started, replied Tifa. All right, you know the rules. Fight, announced their proctor, Wang Fei Hung. Jabs were thrown at high speed, and counters were launched against them. Kicks came in blazing fast. All the Eastern visitors could easily see how outclassed most of them were. In all honesty, the only one that could perhaps stand a chance in their group was Li or Guy using 7 gates, maybe even 8. This match was the longest compared to all the other matches. After 55 minutes of non-stop fighting when all the other matches were already complete, Ryu made his move. Both fighters had bruises all over their bodies, so he only had one chance to do this right. He ducked under Tifa's fist before landing a left punch to her stomach. Tifa was out of breath from that one move, but it wasn't over. Ryu's right fist came right at her chin, landing a solid hit before launching her into the air. Shin Shoryuken, yelled Ryu as he finished the jumping uppercut. Tifa flew up in the air from that devastating hit but managed to recover from it, flipping and landing on her feet when she landed. Unfortunately, she landed outside the arena, disqualifying her. Instead of getting angry, she smiled and congratulated Ryu on the win. The Coliseum was shaking with applaud and cheers. Most of the people were happy and exciting tournament. A select few people from the eastern side were unhappy, though. Specifically, Uchiha Sasuke. He had tried to activate his Sharingan in hopes of stealing all the techniques, but was completely unable to copy the West, as their styles and chakra flow was too complicated for him to follow through. What was worse was when he tried to steal the other villages, they complained about it. Eris came up and slapped him with a seal that she got from Hisoka, completely shutting it down for the while. To add insult to injury, the seal had a special texture disguise from Hisoka that camouflaged the seal, matching the exterior with the same color of his skin. The seal would keep moving on his body, not allowing him to take it off easily. She promised it would stop when the final tournament started, but not before. How was he supposed to get stronger and kill Itachi if these trash prevented him from doing so? He wanted to claim some of the strong women, like Mew and Tifa, but this tournament was making him seem like a fool. He would wait patiently. After all, they can't deny him from his destiny, he thought. Naruto stood up, still wearing his emperor clothing that hid his face, to make an announcement. Will all competitors that pass the preliminaries come up to the front to draw lots? Coming up to the front was Kenichi, Neji, Ryu, Luffy, Guy, Lee, Akumo Nin, Suna Nin, and Iwa Nin. They quickly drew their numbers and were placed in the slots on the fighting tournament table. 1 Suna, 2 Kenichi, 3 Neji, 4 Lee, 5 Iwa, 6 Ryu, 7 Guy, 8 Kumo, 9 Luffy. All right folks, it looks like Luffy Senshu has been seated, announced Kodo. Match 1 is 1v2. Match 2 is 3v4, etc. Match with fighters 7 and 8 will go first so they will have enough time to rest to fight fighter 9. If you have questions, just ask a representative or look at the table. Good night folks, and have a good rest. For tomorrow, we will see who walks away as champion of this tournament along with 100 million Ryos. Luffy, win me that and I'll buy you a bronze statue of yourself. Yelled Nami. Luffy was happy to agree. Competitors, said Naruto in a loud but masked voice. Everyone grew silent in respect to allowing him to easily project his voice. You have done well to make it this far. Tomorrow will be your fiercest battles yet, no doubt. Everyone here is no doubt skilled. But there can be only one winner. Take this time to relax, for tomorrow, we start again. Everyone cheered as he finished his announcement and walked away with his wife. Before any of the cages could try to intercept him to arrange a meeting, he disappeared in a flash. Omake, what if judged Kenichi versus Sasuke? Apachai Hopachai. You, I'll kill you, shouted Sasuke as he was about to blaze through some hand signs. Before he noticed, the Apachai had already moved in front of him, and started wailing on him. As the punches kept coming and slammed Sasuke on the ground, the Easterners were getting scared. Soon, they were horrified at how many punches Apachai was throwing with no signs of stopping. They swore that they saw words behind Apachai saying, "Death God of Muay Thai." "Apapapapapa," shouted Apachai. He suddenly kicked Sasuke up and then uppercut him up to the skies, where he disappeared in a twinkle. The punch you don't let good children see. declared Apachai. Everyone saw that punch, Apachai, said Kenichi as he was looking away. Akisame Ketsuji, I'll kill you, shouted Sasuke as he was about to blaze through some hand signs. However, Ketsuji was already in front of him. Now, you've lost fair and square. Just go back to the waiting area, said Ketsuji with his hands in a placating manner. Sasuke didn't listen and tried to finish the hand signs when he noticed he couldn't feel them anymore. He took a look to see them dislocated. Since you wouldn't listen, I had to resort to other methods, Ketsuji said calmly. Screaming in frustration, he tried to kick him but missed. Before he noticed, Ketsuji grabbed his head, lifted him up, and slammed him into the ground. At impact, Sasuke was bounced upright into his hand, where he continued to bounce his body like a basketball. Ketsuji Rinne Rengoku Tamari, Ketsuji said as he was bouncing the body. Many weren't sure how Sasuke was that bouncy. Translation Ketsuji Samsara Purgatory Tamari Ball. Soon enough, Sasuke was unconscious and taken away. Kasaka Shigur, I'll kill you, shouted Sasuke as he was about to blaze through some hand signs. Shigur suddenly had her sword near his throat. Enough, you've lost, she said. Sakura was screeching about injustice and something about being a bitch. Shigur threw 5 shurikens at Sakura without looking. All 5 hit a piece of clothing on her body and attached her into the wall, where she couldn't move. A second later, a mouse wearing a red ribbon on its tail jumped up in her face and slapped her 3 times before stabbing a needle at a pressure point, shutting her up for good. Most were in shock that even a mouse seemed to be capable of beating someone. Fuck you bitch, I'll beat you and make you one of my slaves, yelled Sasuke. Before anyone could react, Shigur slashed his body several times. A few seconds went by, and suddenly Sasuke found himself naked, showing his glory in front of everyone. Unfortunately for him, it wasn't much, causing much laughter. This is who I wanted to repopulate the clan, said Itachi. Should have known he wouldn't be able to even accomplish that goal, considering the size of his manhood. It won't even reach deep enough, and more likely be crushed before he gets to put it in. Shio Sakari, I'll kill you, shouted Sasuke as he was about to blaze through some hand signs. Sakari merely moved in front of him while drinking a can of beer. Shut up punk, you lost this match, go home, brat, he said while guzzling his drink. Get lost you old drunk. Fire style. Fireball jutsu, yelled Sasuke, shooting out a giant fireball. Sakari just looked at it before sighing. Suddenly his eyes seemed to glow as he punched the fireball, extinguishing it. Before Sasuke could even move, a series of thick walls came up behind him. Hisoka merely smiled as he was the one who provided it. Sakari punched Sasuke into the wall, and right through it. Sorya, who you calling old? I'm only 35, yelled Sakari. He continued to punch and kick Sasuke through each thick walls, causing explosions. It was at the last one when Kenichi and Mew were trying to hold him back. Relax both of you, I might look angry, but I am actually calm, said Sakari. Liar, thought the crowd. Sakari certainly didn't look like it, and the way he insulted Sasuke during the beatdown certainly didn't help. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next part.